Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Destined Antagonist. I refuse to annul the engagement. Chapter 81. Zhang Zan looked calmly at the four city lords, including Zhang Ming, and chuckled, I have already subdued this piece of the human monument. Of course, you may not believe it, so I will reluctantly demonstrate it again. As he spoke, Zhang Zan patted the human monument in front of him. The human monument trembled violently and burst into a brilliant divine radiance, shooting straight into the sky, transforming into a clearly incomplete shadow of a continent, floating in the sky. Buzz! The human monument in the center of the first ancient city also trembled and burst into divine radiance, piercing into the sky. Similarly, it evolved into a continent's shadow. The two continents slowly approached and merged together. Then, buzz, 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 thousands of miles away, the three human monuments of the second ancient city, the third ancient city, and the fourth ancient city also emitted divine radiance one after another, echoing each other, evolving into continent shadows and then slowly drifting and combining together. Boom! An entire ancient and boundless continent appeared in the sky. With a vast and desolate aura, like a substantial storm, it ravaged the heavens and earth, shattering the surrounding void. Against the backdrop of the chaotic dark currents, it seemed as if a real continent had descended. Of course, since it had already split apart, even if it recombined, the cracks between the five pieces were still clearly visible. Then, from this continent, strands of sacred human luck surged out, rolling and dispersing like clouds and mist. Faint human figures appeared one after another, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000. The figures were scattered and bowed. Although no sound came out, it was as if heavenly music had been produced, deafening and shocking, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Of course, Zhang Zan could hear it. Those faint human figures were saying, "We pay our respects to the young king." He could clearly sense that the human luck bestowed upon himself had become even more abundant, and even the suppression of the curse had strengthened slightly. This further strengthened his determination to obtain the other four pieces of the human monument. Waving his hand to dispel the vision, Zhang Zan looked at City Lord Zhang Ming with a playful smile. Since you all don't welcome me, I won't force it. Anyway, I'm leaving, and the trial of the human monument definitely won't be activated. No way, since I can't have fun, let's all have no fun together. Saying that, Zhang Zan grinned, then waved his hand and retrieved the human monument. He said to Zhang Heng, let's go. Zhang Heng glanced at City Lord Zhang Ming and the others, silently nodded, and led the people of their lineage to turn around and leave without any hesitation. The faces of City Lord Zhang Ming and the others immediately turned ugly, and they felt a sense of frustration and suffocation in their hearts. They understood that the other party's words and actions were a threat to them. But they had no way to resist. The opportunity for the trial of the human monument was the only chance for them to send their geniuses out. The inheritance of opportunities within the human monument was undoubtedly extremely precious, and they yearned for it endlessly. However, sending their geniuses out was their fundamental need. The Zhang family members of their lineages had been trapped here for generations, enduring the rules and constraints of this incomplete world, unable to make any progress, and they had long been full of boredom and even disgust. The trial of the human monument could be said to be their only hope. Send their monsters away from this place, give them a chance to pursue their own path, and see the scenery from a higher place. If one day, the monsters can successfully reach the peak, comprehend the great Tao, and return to this place, perhaps there is a chance to help them, or their descendants, to leave this place and free themselves from the heavy shackles brought by the Zhang family's mission. Just like that true God back then, who opened up a spatial passage for them to leave. In fact, if it weren't for that true God being deceived and used by treacherous individuals back then, causing disaster to befall, they would have long left this place as a whole clan, and they might have already established an unparalleled family in the world called Profound Heaven. After all, although their Zhang family's bloodline talent is not as good as the royal bloodline, it still far surpasses ordinary people, and each one can be called a genius. There are also many monsters born among them. Moreover, they also possess a complete inheritance passed down from ancient times. This is also the reason why they repeatedly undergo the trial of the stone monument. Even in this case, it is still the same. But now, this Zhang Chenkin has blocked them all with just a few words. Zhang Chen and the other monsters' faces changed drastically, and they felt anxious and worried. They have worked hard to cultivate for decades, and they have already reached the profound earth realm early on, just for today's trial of the stone monument, so that they can leave this broken world. If they lose this opportunity, their future can be imagined, destined to be like most of the clan, stuck at the profound earth realm and perish in frustration. They are still young, and they don't want to end their lives like this. For a moment, Zhang Chen and the other four monsters quickly looked at Zhang Ming and the other city lords, seeking their help. Or compromise a little. What can this Zhang Chenkin achieve by participating in the trial of the stone monument? They can easily kill him in the mere spiritual transformation realm. Zhang Ming and the other four city lords glanced at each other, with deep frustration in their eyes. They had to admit that they were tightly controlled by the other party. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Ming, the city lord, had to step forward and actively intercept Zhang Zan, secretly hoping, "I hope he doesn't have any excessive demands." Then, he changed his expression to a friendly one and smiled at Zhang Zan. "I was impulsive. Since you are a genius of the Zhongheng lineage, you naturally have the qualifications to participate in the trial of the stone monument. Please." The group of geniuses outside the city saw this scene, and the smiles on their faces instantly froze. How can he turn the tide and take the initiative? When did he get hold of a stone monument? And we all came in together. Why did we suffer heavy losses while this guy didn't have any trouble at all? Not only did he infiltrate the internal affairs of the indigenous people, but he even had time to obtain a stone monument. Why is that? But what Zhang Zan said next not only froze the smiles of the geniuses, but also made their hearts jump and made them curse in anger. Now you invite me to participate in the trial of the stone monument. Isn't it a bit too late? Zhang Zan smiled playfully. I don't have such a good temper. Zhang Ming, the city lord, felt a sinking feeling in his heart. The other party indeed wouldn't give up so easily. However, he was mentally prepared to be extorted and could accept it. Immediately, he asked in a deep voice, "What do you want?" Zhang Zan glanced at the geniuses outside the city with a calm expression and leisurely said, "I guess all these people are waiting to see me make a fool of myself. As for me, I'm not a gentleman. I can't wait 10 years for revenge. If I have a grudge, I settle it on the spot." Looking at Zhang Ming, Zhang Zan chuckled, "I won't make it difficult for you. As soon as you drive away this group of outside, I will participate in the trial of the stone monument." Is it really that simple? Lord Zhang Mingcheng was somewhat surprised. To be honest, he had prepared himself for the other party to make a big demand. Whether it was spiritual minds, powerful medicines, or even Tao medicines, he was willing to sacrifice a large portion of his reserves as long as his son, Zhang Chen, could successfully participate in the trial and leave this world. But he didn't expect that the other party's request would be so simple, just to expel those geniuses outside the city. As you wish, Lord Zhang Mingcheng felt secretly delighted in his heart, but he remained calm on the surface. Immediately, he waved his hand and ordered, "Expel them all 20 miles away." Yes, the army of transformed spirits flew out of the ancient city like a black torrent, sweeping towards the geniuses outside the city. 30 profound earth experts followed, activating the power of the earth veins, overlapping and supporting each other, forming an impregnable barrier, suppressing the geniuses. The fierce aura of killing and destruction surged, shrouding the sky like dark clouds. Brilliant divine abilities and spells formed a magnificent painting, presenting itself between heaven and earth. But beneath this brilliance, there was a terrifying and chilling murderous intent. The geniuses. They were dumbfounded. They were just here to watch the show, waiting for the other party to drive Zhang Chenkin out so they could take action and seize the Jixia Academy. But they never expected that this Zhang Chenkin would be so cunning, effortlessly turning the tables and redirecting the hostility of the indigenous people towards them. How could this be happening? The geniuses cursed inwardly, but faced with the approaching army, they couldn't help but feel a chill running down their spines. No matter how many means and profound foundations they had, they couldn't resist this army of thousands of transformed spirits. Moreover, the other party had 30 profound earth experts. Retreat. They retreated without hesitation, especially the great Luo Saint Child, Xiao Tianyi, who was clearly a profound earth expert and one of the strongest among the geniuses. When they confronted the ancient city earlier, he had the most resolute attitude. But now, he was running faster than anyone else. With the assistance of secret techniques, he had almost retreated 20 miles in the blink of an eye. He didn't care about anything else. His only task now was to stay alive and wait for an opportunity. When the time came, no matter what chances there were, they would all be his. Seeing this, Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai were astonished and had black lines on their faces. They were full of complaints. This guy, as the esteemed great Luo Holy Land's saint child, he had a high status and extraordinary talent, and his combat power was extremely terrifying. He could easily suppress them. How could he be so afraid of death? Kill. At this moment, the army surged forward, carrying an unstoppable momentum of slaughter. Boom. Many mid and early stage transformed spirit geniuses couldn't withstand the enemy's attacks and instantly fell, their corpses scattered on the ground. Seeing this, Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai's hearts trembled, and they didn't hesitate anymore. They turned around and ran. They couldn't confront the enemy head-on, especially since they had different intentions and couldn't unite to resist. To die as a fellow Taoist was unnecessary. Most of the geniuses from various sects and factions had the same idea. The temporary alliance that had formed just now immediately fell apart, and they all retreated. Those who didn't retreat in time fell under the blades of the enemy. Why does this Zhang Chenkin have so many tricks up his sleeve? Mr. Kuei looked at Zhang Zan from a distance, a hint of annoyance flashing in his eyes, and he retreated with unwillingness. He controlled this body with his soul, only able to exert the strength of an ordinary profound earth expert. Even if he risked dissipating his soul, he could only unleash the power of a peak profound earth expert with a single strike. Don't even talk about killing Zhang Zan, breaking through this army is already difficult. He can only endure for now and continue to wait for the opportunity. This child, I have decided to take him in. Zhao Fuyao glanced at Zhang Zan, determination flashing in her eyes. This child has many skills and can easily turn the tide. He is truly a rare talent. In a certain sense, this also reflects the extraordinary nature of the other party. If such a talent were in her hands, with a little cultivation, he would definitely become an unparalleled warrior who could intimidate the world. After this thought flashed through her mind, Zhao Fuyao didn't hesitate any longer and coldly ordered the Zhao family members, retreat. The group of profound Earth Realm geniuses and outstanding individuals quickly fled, leaving only pure Yang Sword Hatega in a miserable state. Previously, he had arrogantly demanded that Zhang Zan hand over the Jixia Academy, so he had walked to the front of the group. But now, the profound Earth Realm experts from the other side joined forces to attack, and he became the primary target. He was being targeted. Faced with the battle of 5 profound Earth Realm experts, Hatega had to use his life-saving trump card, unleashing all the power he had absorbed over the years from the sun, exploding it all at once. Boom! A brilliant sun exploded, temporarily forcing the enemy back. Zhang Chenkin, one day, I will personally cut off your head. Hatega, covered in blood from the backlash, roared in anger. Then, he quickly used a secret technique, turning into a stream of light and swiftly retreating. The group of profound Earth Realm experts didn't pursue him. Their mission was only to expel, not to fight. After 2 incense sticks worth of time, within a 20-li radius of the first ancient city, there were no longer any outstanding individuals or geniuses, only the corpses of the transcendent beings lying on the ground. Xiao Tianyi, Ji Yufeng, and other outstanding individuals were scattered in various directions 20 li away, coldly staring at the first ancient city. They had grown to hate Zhang Chenkin, who had suffered so much. How long had it been? At most 3 days. They had all brought several outstanding individuals from their respective sects, but now most of them were dead, leaving only a few profound Earth Realm experts and peak transcendent beings. Although most of the outstanding individuals had fallen not because of Zhang Chenkin, they still blamed him for the misfortunes of this journey. Truly, this Zhang Chenkin is too hateful. Zhang Chenkin. At this moment, whether it was the outstanding individuals from the Eastern Divine Continent or the Southern Divine Continent, they all deeply remembered this name, grinding their teeth with hatred. However, the army of the ancient city was stationed in front of them like a steel behemoth, intimidating them. With their current strength, they were completely powerless against it. They could only watch as Zhang Chenkin, that detestable person, leisurely participated in the trial of the human monument. In the distance, Zhang Honggrao watched all of this with great interest, amazed in his heart. He couldn't help but sigh once again. truly worthy of being a transcendent being with a return to ancestral bloodline, playing with flowers. Although he didn't know the true name of that person, he was certain that it was definitely not Zhang Chenkin. As a member of the Zhang family, although he was born late, he still had some understanding of the general situation of the Zhang family. Zhang Chenkin doesn't have the ability to do all this. It was obvious that this unknown member of the Zhang family was using Zhang Chenkin's name to cause trouble. Zhang Chenkin has earned so much hatred without even leaving his house. It's quite fortunate for him. Zhang Hong chuckled to himself, unable to hold back his laughter. Is it okay now? Lord Zhang Mingcheng looked at Zhang Zan, suppressing his frustration and maintaining a gentle smile on his face. Zhang Zan glanced at him lightly and nodded with a smile, saying, "Thank you for your trouble. I, Zhang Chenkin, always keep my word. Let's go and start the trial of the human steel," Zhang Zan said, secretly signaling the girl. The girl understood and nodded silently, her eyes sparkling with a radiant smile. Upon hearing this, Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others immediately felt relieved, and their smiles became more genuine. Please, led by Lord Zhang Mingcheng, Zhang Zan and his group walked towards the central area of the first ancient city. But before they had taken a few steps, the girl tugged at Zhang Zan and squatted down on the ground, crying loudly, "Daddy, I'm so hungry." Everyone's expressions froze, and they looked at the girl in astonishment. They had actually not noticed this girl all along. Is she Zhang Chenkin's daughter? No way, when would a genius like him bring his daughter along to seize opportunities in a secret realm? Do they think this is a field trip? But in the next moment, their focus shifted because of the girl's words, becoming strange. Hungry. Zhang Zan touched the girl's head and asked with a smile, "What do you want to eat then?" The girl sucked on her finger, her big eyes darting around as she thought for a while. Then, she curved her lips into a crescent moon and said cheerfully, "Daddy, I want to eat king medicine. Dao medicine. The more, the better." Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others were instantly shocked. Which child would eat king medicine and Dao medicine when they're hungry? Not to mention whether they have the financial means. Even if they do, how could a child withstand the powerful medicinal effects of king medicine and Dao medicine? You should know that Dao medicine contains the power of the great Dao. Even a Dao fusion realm expert needs to be extremely cautious when refining it, for fear of being harmed by the terrifying power of the great Dao and damaging their own Dao foundation. But, I don't have any king medicine or Dao medicine on me right now, Zhang Zan said helplessly, but his gaze had already shifted to Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the other 4 city lords. Seeing this, the corners of Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others' mouths twitched, and they immediately understood. If you want to extort cultivation resources from us, just say it. Do you really have to use your child as a cover? Lord Zhang Mingcheng instinctively turned his head, avoiding eye contact with Zhang Zan, pretending to know nothing and understand nothing. Tisk, stingy. The girl's voice was neither loud nor soft, but everyone present, who were cultivators at the nascent soul or profound earth realm, could clearly hear her disdainful words. Their faces immediately darkened. No. This child is not only extorting people, but she's also shamelessly doing it. Daddy, I'm hungry. I'm not going anymore. The girl squatted on the ground, pouting. Sorry, my child has a bit of a temper. We'll start the trial of the human steel after she's feeling better. Zhang Zan spread his hands apologetically and smiled at Lord Zhang Mingcheng. Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others couldn't hold it in anymore. If you want some benefits for the human steel trial, it's understandable. Let's talk openly and honestly. Why do you have to do it like this? Do you think we're all fools? I have a king medicine here. I can't let the child go hungry. Lord Zhang Mingcheng couldn't bear it anymore and took out a king medicine, handing it to the girl with a forced smile on his face. This Zhang Chenkin likes to act, so he'll accompany him. He wants to see how much a child can eat. The power of a king medicine is probably enough to make this child's physical body collapse. The girl took the king medicine without hesitation and swallowed it in one gulp. Lord Zhang Mingcheng stared at the girl for a long time, but he never saw the scene of her physical body collapsing as he had expected. This little girl, after swallowing the king medicine, seemed to have eaten a snack. Hungry. The girl locked eyes with Lord Zhang Mingcheng and blinked her big eyes. Lord Zhang Mingcheng refused to believe it and took out another king medicine. The little girl swallowed another one. Then she took out another one. And swallowed it again. Like this, one after another. Lord Zhang Mingcheng's face turned pitch black. The Wong medicine in his storage ring was gone. I'm hungry. Is there more? The little girl asked. What kind of monster is this? Lord Zhang Mingcheng was dumbfounded. In just this short moment, this little one had swallowed nearly 200 Wong medicines from him, right? Helpless, Lord Zhang Mingcheng could only look at the other three lords with a pleading expression. And then, the other three lords also joined in the feeding. After half an incense stick's worth of time, the faces of the three lords also turned black. Their Wong medicines were also gone. Hungry, so hungry. The little girl said in a pitiful voice, Wong medicine doesn't taste good at all, I want to eat Dao medicine. Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others looked troubled and were unwilling to take out Dao medicine. Although the spiritual energy in this world was abundant and there were many treasures, Dao medicine was still extremely precious. Even if their respective sects had stored them for millions of years, they only had dozens of them. Seeing this, Zhang Zan pretended to feel sorry and said, You can't go hungry. Come, I'll take you to find something to eat. Saying that, he picked up the little girl and walked towards the city gate. There's something to eat. Lord Zhang Mingcheng panicked and quickly took out a Dao medicine and handed it to the little girl. Joking aside, if this Zhang Chenkin were to leave now, wouldn't the 200 Wong medicines he had just given be wasted? The little girl took the Dao medicine and smiled happily. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she swallowed it in one gulp. Wait, Dao medicine can also be swallowed in one gulp. Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the other four lords looked at each other, completely bewildered. What on earth is this? Is she the reincarnation of a gluttonous beast? I'm hungry, the little girl continued. And then, a familiar scene played out again. Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the other four lords took turns feeding her, stuffing 12 Dao medicines into the little girl's mouth. It should be noted that Zhang Zan had only obtained 10 Dao medicines after searching the entire ancient road. Is there more? The little girl looked at the four people with a pale face, blinked her eyes, and her tone became much more sensible. I am still a little hungry. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others were furious, clearly reaching their limit. But, for the sake of the trial of the blood monument, they still didn't explode. The people of the Zhongheng lineage, watching this scene, couldn't help but burst into laughter. They had first-hand experience of the little princess's appetite. It was like a bottomless pit, impossible to fill. Just a day ago, on their way here, they passed by a canyon with an unexploited spiritual mine. 10 miles long, and it was swallowed in one gulp by this little one. So, although they didn't know what the deal was with the little princess of the Xiaowang lineage, they could be certain that even an adult gluttonous beast couldn't eat as much as she could. Seeing that Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others were on the verge of losing control, Zhang Zan quickly coughed. This was a signal, meaning, it's enough. The little girl needed energy to unlock her bloodline seal, and he needed resources to accelerate his cultivation. Father and daughter worked together for a win-win situation. Those Wong medicines and Dao medicines that seemed to have been swallowed by the little girl were actually all stored in the space inside her stomach, not yet digested. They could be vomited out later and divided equally. The little girl glanced at Zhang Zan, nodded vigorously, and said loudly, Got it, Daddy, I'm not hungry anymore. ... Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others twitched at the corners of their mouths, their whole bodies burning with anger. She really doesn't leave anything for others, huh? Sorry, the child threw a little tantrum and wasted everyone's time. Zhang Zan apologized with some remorse, but there was no trace of apology on his face. After all, if he hadn't controlled the power of the monument earlier, he would have been expelled from the ancient city long ago and targeted by those geniuses. It would have been extremely difficult for him to escape. It was cheap of them to make him bleed a little. The faces of Lord Zhang Mingcheng and the others turned red with anger, but they could only endure it forcibly. It had come to this point, so they might as well act along with him. As long as they successfully opened the trial of the monument, they would make this shameless Zhang Chenkin pay back everything he had taken from them, without missing a single bit. Zhang Chen and the other geniuses from various sects stared at Zhang Zan with unfriendly eyes, their hearts filled with murderous intent. When the monument was opened, they would make this shameless Zhang Chenkin understand what cruelty meant. However, this guy with only a cultivation level in the spiritual realm dared to repeatedly threaten and extort them. It was like looking for death. With different thoughts in mind, they arrived at the central area. The monument of the first ancient city came into view. Compared to the one Zhang Zan obtained, there was not much difference, except that it might be slightly longer and the vast aura was even stronger. Can we start now? Lord Zhang Mingcheng looked at Zhang Zan expressionlessly and asked. Implicitly, he meant that if you have any requests, speak up quickly. Don't cause any trouble once we officially start. This shameless Zhang Chenkin had obtained a monument. As long as the other party didn't start, even if they activated the other 4 monuments, they still couldn't initiate the trial of the monuments. It would be a waste of effort. We can. Zhang Zan chuckled. He had already gained quite a lot of benefits. After all, the faces of those few had turned pale and they almost lost control just now. Lord Zhang Mingcheng breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the other 3 city lords. They nodded at each other, then took a step forward, raised their heads to gaze at the divine remains of the mountain god in the sky, knelt down, cut their palms, and let the blood of their respective lineages flow out. They used their blood to wipe the monument. Then, they respectfully said, "Descendants of the Zhang family, with the blood of our lineage guarding, we beseech the mountain god to descend his will, awaken the monument, and open the trial." Buzz. The smooth surface of the monument, with its mysterious patterns, emitted a radiant glow. The vast aura surged out, like clouds and mist, with an indescribable heaviness, as if it were a divine peak suppressing time and space. The vast aura surged towards the sky and merged into the remains of the mountain god. Buzz. The vast and profound sky seemed to brighten a little, and the vortex formed by starlight slowly rotated. The remains of the mountain god trembled slightly, and then an indescribable divine light descended, containing the highest will, as if it possessed the supreme power to control the laws of heaven and earth. Boom! The monument shook violently, and the mysterious patterns on its smooth surface slowly reversed, emitting a vast radiance that reflected in the heavens and earth. The vortex above the sky seemed to give birth to a hazy and profound ancient aura. However, this vortex was obviously not fully formed, giving people a feeling that it was only 1/5 complete. Soon, the monuments of the other 3 ancient cities also erupted with a vast radiance, pouring into the vortex, causing it to expand further. It had already taken on the outline of an ancient gateway, naturally exuding a shocking sacred aura. But this ancient gateway still hadn't fully materialized. Everyone subconsciously looked at Zhang Zan. "It's up to you now." Zhang Zan didn't hesitate and directly summoned his monument. It also emitted a vast radiance, pouring into the vortex. Buzz. The majestic and heavy gateway completely solidified. Tall, indescribable, wide, also indescribable. This ancient gateway stands silently there, as if encompassing the heavens and the earth, containing the 4 seas and the 8 wildernesses. The ancient and desolate heavy aura suddenly increased by 10,000 times, like an ocean, covering the entire world. Those living beings in this broken world feel a sense of awe, as if facing ancient gods, feeling their own insignificance. A dark golden divine radiance spreads, shining in the sky. The great chains woven from countless divine symbols and Tao patterns are bound to the ancient gateway, extending to an unfathomable depth that cannot be explored, as if leading to the end of the void and the other side of time and space. Various auspicious signs appear in abundance. Thousands of golden flowers falling, colorful clouds stretching for thousands of miles, the shadows of ancient sages sitting and lecturing, and the fierce tribes bowing and roaring. The Tianzhaos outside the ancient city watch this scene from afar, grinding their teeth in hatred. Such earth-shattering phenomena must contain an extraordinary inheritance. But they can only stay here obediently, unable to participate, and this feeling is even more uncomfortable than being killed. All of this is because of that Zhang Chenkin. The resentment of the Tianzhaos towards Zhang Chenkin deepens. In front of the stone monument, everyone gazes at the ancient gateway, their hearts burning with excitement, but they do not act rashly. Zhang Chen and the other 4 demonic geniuses and Tianzhaos look at each other, then look at Zhang Zan, their eyes filled with coldness and a sneer. "Even if you control the stone monument, so what? With your own strength, you can't even enter the inside of the stone monument." According to the usual practice of the stone monument trial, the Tianzhaos of their 5 veins would compete with each other, determine the 5 who would enter the stone monument, and then proceed to the next trial. In the previous trials, the Tianjiaos of the Zhongheng vein were all weaklings who couldn't compare to the Tianjiaos of the other veins. This time, they did invite this Zhang Chenkin as their reinforcement, but he is only at the spirit transformation realm. His luck may be good, but his strength is ordinary and nothing worth mentioning. Zhang Ming and the other 4 city lords look at each other, nodding secretly, and have the same idea in their hearts. They want to eliminate this Zhang Chenkin in the first round of competition. Of course, it would be best if they could kill him. According to the usual practice, the Tianjiaos and demonic geniuses of the 5 veins will compete first to determine the 5 spots to enter the stone monument. City Lord Zhang Ming looks at Zhang Zan and says calmly. Zhang Heng's face slightly changes, instinctively looks at Zhang Zan, his gaze filled with worry. The talent of the young king is unparalleled. Given time, he will definitely become a king of men. But for now, he is only at the spirit transformation realm, afraid that it will be difficult to match the demonic geniuses of the other 4 veins who are at the profound earth realm. Especially Zhang Chen, the son of City Lord Zhongming, who is only 40 years old and has already reached the profound earth second stage. His combat power is probably enough to easily suppress the current young king. Zhang Zan meets the gaze of City Lord Zhongming, immediately understands his intentions, but he obviously doesn't care about him. What does it have to do with me if it's the usual practice? I'm not a member of your Zhang family, why should I follow the usual practice? 5 spots, right, fine, I'll take 1 first, and the remaining 4, you can fight for them yourselves. Saying that, Zhang Zan doesn't even care whether the other party agrees or not, he directly takes a step and enters the ancient gateway. Using the words from my previous life, as long as I don't have morals, I won't be bound by morals. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Everyone is dumbfounded. Isn't this guy a robber? Lord Zhang Mingcheng's face turned pale, cursing inwardly. This time was different from before. They had opened the door to the man-steal in advance, which meant that their attempt to use rules to restrain and eliminate their opponents was completely ineffective. Now, what should we do? One of the lords asked with a depressed expression. Do we still have to compete? The 4 veins are competing for 4 spots, and there is no suspense. It is definitely the profound earth geniuses from each vein. But, after this competition, it's possible that everything in the man-steal will be taken by that Zhang Chenkin. That kid even managed to subdue the man-steal of the Zhongheng vein. It's not impossible. You 4, go in. Lord Zhang Mingcheng gestured to Zhang Chen and the other 3 profound earth geniuses, then looked at the other outstanding talents from the other veins and coldly ordered, you, surrender. These, surrendered, outstanding talents naturally felt unwilling, but, faced with the Lord's tough attitude, they could only reluctantly accept it. Dad, don't worry, I will personally crush Zhang Chenkin's head. Zhang Chen's eyes flashed with coldness, and the chains of the great Tao on his body trembled, exuding a chilling aura. A nascent soul realm fool, in charge of a man-steal, thinking that he can ignore the rules of our Zhang family and do whatever he wants. Seeking death. The other 3 geniuses felt the same, anger surging in their hearts. This Zhang Chenkin has repeatedly provoked our Zhang family, and now he dares to disregard the rules and enter the man-steal directly. Does he really think highly of himself? A mere nascent soul realm, they can easily kill him. Inside the man-steal is Zhang Chenkin, the place where he fell. Immediately, Zhang Chen and the other 3, with a murderous intent, stepped through the door and entered the interior of the man-steal. Boom! The chaotic aura of disorder rushed towards them, fiercely impacting everyone's minds. A sense of weightlessness followed. And there was also a strong white light that forcefully deprived everyone of their 5 senses. It felt as if they were in a fictional space, not only losing control of their bodies, but also losing their perception of the surrounding things. Although they knew clearly that they were still alive, there was nothing to prove their existence. It was as if they had been swallowed by nothingness and became a part of it. A deep sense of powerlessness instantly swept through their bodies, enveloping them. Indescribable despair quickly grew and spread in their hearts. Fortunately, this process didn't last long. Of course, this was in regard to Zhang Zan. Crack, crack, crack. Under the extreme white light, a sound of gears turning slowly echoed in Zhang Zan's mind. Heavy and slow, with unparalleled resistance. At this moment, the Tao foundation in Zhang Zan's dantian, which was like a black hole, trembled slightly. This is the gears of time. Without any basis, Zhongzhan had this guess, as if it was the answer that had been forcefully inserted into his cognition by some mysterious rule through violence. After Zhongzhan had this answer in his cognition, the white light that had engulfed him slowly receded like a tide. His 5 senses were restored. This was an ancient altar, consisting of 9 layers and 9 levels, presenting a weathered grayish-white color. A strong desolate aura, like a substance, rushed into their minds, unstoppable, pouring in. Plip, plop, a tear fell from Zhongzhan's eyes. This was not intentional, but because this altar, with its ancient desolation spanning eternity, had formed a special rule. No matter who stood here, they would be infected by this desolation, overwhelmed with infinite sadness, and shed tears. Zhongzhan raised his eyes slightly, looking up at this ancient altar. Why is it looking up? Because the altar is too majestic and grand. It is a kind of indescribable momentum, containing the supreme meaning of greatness. In fact, the altar only has 9 layers and 9 steps, and it only takes a few steps to reach the top. But, standing here, a sense of insignificance arises, as if an ant in the dust, looking up at the vast expanse of stars. At this moment, the royal blood within Zhongzhan's body trembled violently, conveying a sense of joy and excitement. The dazzling blood light reflected on his body, presenting a crystal-clear amber color. The altar of the human race. Zhongzhan pondered. Immediately, he took a step forward. Boom! The indescribable momentum pressed down, as if a continent was collapsing and weighing heavily on him. Zhongzhan instinctively activated his cultivation, physical body, and other means, but it was as if everything had been stripped away, without any response at all. Only the bloodline in his body flowed, making a gurgling sound, like a mysterious supreme Tao sound. The momentum gradually subsided. A breeze rose out of nowhere and poured into Zhongzhan's body. Countless sacred rules of the great Tao tempered Zhongzhan's physical body, bloodline, and even his physique. His already crystal-clear body became even purer to the naked eye. Examining the bloodline, Zhongzhan's mouth curled up. His 95% concentration of the Zhong family's royal blood, wasn't that like cheating? At this moment, Zhong Chen and the other 4 geniuses finally crossed the long void and appeared at the foot of the altar. Obviously, they had not comprehended the gears of time, and their minds were still in a chaotic state. After a while, Zhong Chen and the others opened their eyes, their minds barely restored to clarity. Looking up at the altar, they were unable to express their shock. They had already learned about the situation inside the human monument in advance, but when they truly faced this altar, they were still strongly shocked, and their minds became hazy. Desolation enveloped them, and tears fell from their eyes. After briefly calming their emotions, Zhong Chen and the others looked at Zhongzhan, their eyes filled with a murderous intent. One of the geniuses, without hesitation, directly used a killing divine ability, with the support of the Fire Tao rules, and manifested a ferocious beast, pouncing towards Zhongzhan. You jumping clown, you've been jumping around for quite some time, now it's time to end it. The beast, 3 zhong tall, enveloped in towering flames, exuded a fierce and terrifying aura, making people tremble. But in the next moment, a breeze appeared out of thin air on the altar, containing the rules of order, passing through the beast like white snow under the spring sun, causing the beast to melt away. The genius's divine ability instantly disintegrated. The genius's eyelids twitched, recalling the records about the human monument in ancient books. His expression turned gloomy, and a look of unwillingness appeared on his face. Fighting is prohibited inside the human monument. This kid's luck is really too good. It doesn't matter, let him live a little longer, what can he do? Zhong Chen sneered, let him watch us obtain the inheritance while he gets nothing, it's also a kind of enjoyment. On the altar, examining the bloodline meant that the stronger the bloodline, the further one could go. At the same time, the more the human monument bestowed, the greater the potential could be further enhanced. Most importantly, if the bloodline was recognized, the inheritance left by the ancient human powerhouses would manifest on the altar. As long as they passed the assessment of the inheritance imprint, they would obtain the corresponding inheritance. They were confident in simply examining the bloodline. After all, the Zhong family bloodline they carried was an ancient bloodline inherited from the mountain god. Even during the peak of the ancient human race, it was second only to the royal bloodline. Moreover, the concentration of their bloodline, each exceeding a terrifying 75. The absolute gap in bloodline, even this Zhang Chenkin who had suffered 1,000 cuts and controlled a human monument, would never be able to cross it. The bloodlines of the outsiders were becoming increasingly diluted. How could they compare to themselves and others? The other three villains immediately smiled when they heard this, and their gazes towards Zhang Zan became more playful. They were looking forward to seeing the expression on Zhang Chenkin's face when they obtained the inheritance of the ancient powerhouses through their bloodline. Then, they each took a step forward. An indescribable force came crashing down. The brilliant bloodline surged, offsetting the force and then accepting the baptism. The process was the same, but the speed varied. Zhang Chen and the others were clearly faster than Zhang Zan. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, they had already surpassed the 9th level and caught up to Zhang Zan, arriving together on the 2nd level. This is the difference. Zhang Chen glanced at Zhang Zan and coldly smiled. The nobility of our bloodline is something you can never reach. Trying to interfere with the trial of the human steel, don't you look in the mirror? Are you even qualified? After saying these contemptuous words, Zhang Chen withdrew his gaze from Zhang Zan and ignored him. To be honest, if it weren't for this Zhang Chenkin who held the human steel and used it to exploit and blackmail the various branches of the Zhang family, making him resentful, he wouldn't have mocked him like this while lowering his own status. Otherwise, with the pitiful cultivation and talent of the other party, he wouldn't even be worth his attention. Just a mere spirit transformation cultivator, thinking that he can play a role in influencing various parties. What a joke. But they obviously didn't notice that the degree of baptism from the human steel depended on the strength of their bloodline. In other words, the stronger the bloodline, the longer the baptism. This was the reason why Zhang Chen and the others were able to catch up to Zhang Zan. Zhang Chen and the others glanced at the silent Zhang Zan and believed that he had realized the huge gap between them and had no power to argue back. They couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile. Then, with a relaxed mood, they stepped into the 2nd level. The terrifying force surged down like a torrent, at least 10 times stronger than the 1st level. Zhang Chen and the others felt their bodies sink and their expressions changed. But they could still hold on. They knew that starting from this level, the imprints of the ancient powerhouses' inheritances would appear one after another. Of course, the prerequisite was that their bloodline talents had been recognized by the other party. Regarding this, they had absolute confidence. Each of them carried a Zhang family bloodline that exceeded 75, which was enough to rank them among the top in the history of the Zhang family's outstanding individuals. Especially Zhang Chen, whose bloodline concentration had reached a terrifying 80. Even during the peak of the ancient era when guarding the Zhang family, an 80 concentration of the Zhang family bloodline was extremely rare. Therefore, it was definitely not a problem to trigger the imprints of the ancient powerhouses' inheritances. On Zhang Zan's side, he was currently experiencing the changes in his own physique. Zhang Chen's mockery couldn't even reach his ears, and he had no intention of paying attention to it. In his eyes, these people were just insignificant ants. Who would bother arguing with ants? It would just make them ants too. After they left, he would easily deal with them. He currently possessed 2 powerful physiques. One was the innate fire Tao spirit body gifted to him by his unseen fiancé, and the other was the indestructible thunder body that Lei Zhu, that old fool, had exploded out before dying. He discovered that the baptism of the human steel had a significant impact on his physique, far surpassing the tempering of his physical body and bloodline. For example, now that he had only passed 1 level, the innate fire Tao spirit body was already showing signs of transformation. And the thunder body was even closer to completion. This was a thunder Tao physique that could rival the innate sacred body. If it could be completed, his physical strength would at least triple. His thunder Tao intent would probably also advance to the later stages or even perfection. These were all real improvements in strength. It truly lives up to its reputation as a sacred artifact of the human race. Just this baptism alone is beyond imagination. Zhang Zan's eyes lifted slightly as he gazed at the top of the altar, filled with anticipation. If he could reach the summit, how terrifying would the enhancement of his physique be? What kind of physique will the innate fire Tao spirit body evolve into? Immediately, Zhang Zan took a step forward and entered the 1st stage of the 2nd layer. Like a torrential current of the end times, it rushed towards him and crashed onto Zhang Zan. The power of the royal blood instantly neutralized it. How terrifying is the Zhang family's royal blood with a concentration of 95? In this era, no one can speculate, but without a doubt, it can be proudly said that no one among the celestial beings of the present can match him. Abundant Tao energy flowed into Zhang Zan's body like a trickle, continuing to temper his blood-refining meridians and physical body. Those impurities that had penetrated deep into his bones, which Zhang Zan couldn't even touch no matter how much he tempered his physical body in the past, were now gradually stripped away under the pure penetration of the Tao energy during the baptism of the human monument. His physical body became purer and purer. The purer the physical body, the closer it is to heaven and earth, and the easier it is to comprehend the Tao. This is a real potential enhancement. There was no obvious change in his bloodline. After all, with a bloodline concentration of 95, Zhang Zan's starting point was already very high. However, it could still be seen that the impurities in Zhang Zan's bloodline were being stripped away, becoming more and more pure. The connection between his bloodline and physical body became closer and closer, forming a mysterious relationship, constantly supplying each other without end. When his bloodline regressed, it simply added the power of the royal blood to his physical body. But now, his bloodline and physical body were tending towards becoming a whole, forming an organic cycle between each other. It can be imagined that his physical strength would obviously be greatly increased. Of course, this is only a small part of the changes brought about by the baptism of the human monument. A large part of the abundant Tao energy was actually absorbed by his two physiques. This also caused his physique to continue to improve and transform. However, Zhang Zan was immersed in the baptism of the human monument and did not notice that as he stepped into the second layer, some subtle changes had occurred on the altar beneath his feet. A thin layer of light rose from the surface of the gray-white ancient altar, carrying a sacred aura with a hint of subtle decay. As if creatures buried in the river of time slowly crawled out from the other end of the river of time. Under this change, anomalies also appeared on the 9-layer ancient altar. Buzz. Obscure radiance swept up out of thin air. On the steps of the second layer, a hazy vortex appeared, surging with strands of vast Tao rules. Then, a decaying aura surged out like waves from the vortex. A burly figure slowly walked out. Although the figure appeared faint and almost transparent, it inexplicably exuded a terrifying power. Dominating, overbearing, and majestic. Just a glance at it would cause one's mind to be severely impacted. In a trance, it seemed as if one saw a blade-wielding overlord, sitting on a brilliant and colorful galaxy, using the blade in his hand to cut through the heavens and behead all living beings in the world. Zhang Chen and the others trembled in their hearts. What kind of power is this? This figure in front of them was clearly just a legacy imprint left by an ancient powerhouse, not even considered a remnant soul. It could only be regarded as a conscious image, almost without any actual strength. Just a mere image possessed such a terrifying power. Then, how terrifying would the strength of the ancient powerhouse in front of this figure be? How strong would his inheritance be? Deep anticipation rose in the hearts of Zhang Chen and the others. Ah! The hazy eyes of this figure lifted slightly, taking in the scene on the altar. Then, he looked up at the chaotic and disorderly sky, his profound gaze seeming to penetrate space, seeing the indescribable myriad of heavens and worlds, seeing the current situation of the human race. After a moment, he withdrew his gaze and sighed with a hint of loneliness. Time ages people. I didn't expect that. It has been several epochs in a hurry. Fortunately, I have finally waited for a human junior. As soon as these words were spoken, Zhang Chen and the others were moved, filled with joy. The human junior, mentioned by the other party, wasn't it referring to them? It seems that their inheritance is already secured. As for Zhang Chenkin, who had suffered 1,000 cuts, he had long been forgotten by them. This is their home ground. The younger generation of the human race pays respects to the seniors. May I ask for the senior's name? Zhang Chen and the other three bowed and saluted. The burly figure glanced at the four of them and smiled faintly. I am known as the Blade Ancestor. I once served under the banner of the Human King as a general, leading a great army to eliminate billions of demon soldiers. This Blade Ancestor was clearly a peak powerhouse, with a name that resounded throughout the ages. However, in his eyes, being able to serve as a general under the Human King was more worthy of pride than his own cultivation level. Blade Ancestor. Zhang Chen and the others' expressions froze, filled with uncertainty. They had perused the ancient records of the Zhang family, and there was indeed a record of an ancient powerhouse named Blade Ancestor. According to the records, the Blade Ancestor had walked his own path of the blade, successfully attaining the title of Immortal, with a single slash that severed a demon domain and annihilated billions of enemies. Legend had it that under that single slash, corpses piled up into a divine mountain, wandering in the galaxy, while demon blood gathered into a sea of blood, dyeing the starry sky into a profound abyss, hanging above the 9 heavens and descending into the profound transcendence. Could the person before them be the Blade Ancestor who severed the demon domain with a single slash? Zhang Chen and the others swallowed nervously, forcibly calming their trembling minds, and respectfully asked, "May we ask, are you the Blade Ancestor who severed the demon domain with a single slash?" The Blade Ancestor glanced at the 4 of them in surprise, a smile of interest on his face. "I didn't expect that after countless eras, there are still people among the younger generation of the human race who remember my name." "Yes, it is I." The Blade Ancestor waved his hand and modestly said, "Severing a demon domain is nothing worth mentioning. There are many who are stronger than me among those who left their inheritance marks here." Upon hearing this, Zhang Chen and the others' breathing stagnated. There were even stronger ancient powerhouses than the Blade Ancestor. How terrifying would the inheritance marks they left behind be? The 4 of them were filled with excitement and their hearts were ablaze. If they were fortunate enough to obtain the inheritance of an ancient powerhouse, then they would have no worries about reaching the realm of true gods and standing at the peak. Perhaps, like the Blade Ancestor before them, they could attain the title of Immortal. It was definitely not a dream. Zhang Chen and the others were lost in their thoughts, but they didn't forget about the Blade Ancestor before them and had their own ideas about his inheritance. Even though the Blade Ancestor modestly claimed that there were many who were stronger than him, it didn't mean that his inheritance was weak. It was a joke. How could someone who attained the title of Immortal and severed a demon domain with a single slash be associated with weak? The 4 of them looked at each other, each with their own thoughts, but they restrained themselves and didn't let their tempers flare. After all, with their bloodline aptitude, they would definitely be able to obtain the inheritance of an ancient powerhouse. In a situation where there were plenty of choices, there was no need to compete and tear each other apart. After all, they were all members of the Zhang family, guarding the same bloodline. The Blade Ancestor's inheritance is most likely related to the path of the blade. "Zhang Chen, you practice the path of the blade, so it suits you the best," one of them whispered. The other 2 also nodded in agreement. "Well." Zhang Chen hesitated for a moment, but he didn't continue to refuse. Instead, he nodded with pleasure. "Thank you all for your consideration." To be honest, the subsequent inheritance marks that appeared were likely to be even better than the Blade Ancestor's inheritance. However, what suited oneself was the best. The Blade Ancestor's inheritance was exactly what he desired. His path of the blade had already reached the peak of comprehending the Tao. If he could combine it with the Blade Ancestor's inheritance, he had great confidence in advancing to the mid-stage of comprehending the Tao with a single step. Zhang Chen and the other 3 quietly discussed the ownership of the Blade Ancestor's inheritance, without hiding anything from the Blade Ancestor. He naturally heard everything and found it quite interesting. These little fellows had mediocre aptitude, but their confidence was inflated. His gaze occasionally fell on Zhang Zan. In his heart, a storm was brewing. The concentration of this bloodline. At this moment, Zhang Zan, who had been selectively forgotten by Zhang Chen and others, had already completed the second level step by step and was still continuing upwards. The innate fire Tao spirit and the indestructible thunder body were also advancing rapidly. The fire Tao and thunder Tao formed 2 chains that bound Zhang Zan's physical body, and the Tao rhyme became even more profound and powerful. Transformation is only a matter of time, and the changes brought about by Zhang Zan's steady progress upwards are buzz. Buzz, buzz. Deep vortexes appeared one after another, and figures with ancient and powerful auras walked out. Each hazy figure was accompanied by terrifying fluctuations of the great Tao, and some even had inexplicable shocking phenomena. Moreover, just by standing there with his hands behind his back, the void around him collapsed, the rules of the great Tao were annihilated, as if unable to withstand the aura of his imprint. Red Lotus Sword Immortal, Town Demon Martial Emperor, Zub Great Sage, Heavenly Formation Old Demon, Mysterious Yin Chin Lady. As each figure walked out, the smile on the Blade Ancestor's face grew, and he called out their titles one by one, like long-lost old friends, expressing his welcome and nostalgia in this way. These ancient powerhouses looked at the Blade Ancestor upon hearing his voice, smiling and nodding in response, their hazy eyes filled with inexplicable sighs and loneliness. They too had experienced glorious years, a life of greatness and dominance, following the banner of the human emperor, fighting alongside the 8 human kings, conquering the myriad races in the starry sky, killing their way from the beginning of the myriad realms to the end of the heavens. However, the world is unpredictable, and an unprecedented upheaval suddenly descended upon the human race without warning. First, the human emperor mysteriously disappeared, followed by the 8 human kings and their 8 royal clans, cursed and killed by the Kangming demon emperor. The human race, which once ruled the myriad realms and roamed the starry sky, collapsed and disintegrated. And they, in the counterattack of the myriad races, fell with regret. Fortunately, the human monument that carried the luck and fate of the human race still remained. They were able to preserve a trace of their souls, turning into inheritance imprints and sleeping here, waiting for the younger generation of the human race to awaken them and receive their inheritance. But they never expected that this wait would last for several great epochs. The myriad realms they once dyed red with the blood of their enemies have collapsed and changed time and time again. Until today, that glorious era they once fought passionately in has been labeled as ancient, a distant and unfamiliar term tainted with the heavy breath of time chi. It's been a long time since I've seen this world. Zug Great Sage stroked his white beard, feeling a bit nostalgic for a moment. Many ancient powerhouses nodded silently, their hazy eyes filled with a hint of sadness. The Blade Ancestor, on the other hand, chuckled and broke the somewhat melancholic atmosphere with a single sentence: "Our era, although it has long ended, but theirs, his era has just begun." The human race has never lacked excitement. Everyone understood. Their gazes bypassed Zhang Chen and the others, falling on Zhang Zan. They could clearly sense that he carried the will of the human race and possessed considerable human luck. There was no doubt that he was a boundlessly promising young king. If he could grow smoothly, he would undoubtedly be able to become a human king, commanding the human race in the heavens, and restore the former glory of the human race. Zhang Chen and the others naturally did not have the qualifications to listen to the conversations of these ancient powerhouses. They only saw the appearance of one ancient powerhouse's inheritance imprint after another. According to the Blade Ancestor's words, each one possessed terrifying power that had fought in the starry sky, and at the very least, had achieved the name of immortality. The inheritance of any one of them would be enough to benefit them for a lifetime, even help them further their path and reach the pinnacle of greatness. For a while, Zhang Chen and the others' expressions became extremely rich, their radiant smiles appearing a bit foolish. Just like the Blade Ancestor, these supreme ancient powerhouses, one after another, their inheritance imprints appeared before their eyes. This kind of overwhelming happiness cannot be described in words. In their hearts right now, it was like surging angry waves, layer upon layer, surging and billowing. There were too many powerful inheritances, and they didn't know how to choose. Zhang Chen and the other 3 looked at each other, exchanging glances and discussing for a long time. They each selected the inheritance they most desired, as if the inheritance of the ancient powerhouses was as easy to choose as picking cabbage. This scene did not elicit any reaction from the likes of the Blade Ancestor. Although they were somewhat displeased in their hearts, given their identities, they naturally wouldn't argue with these few youngsters. Too cheap. After Zhang Chen and the others reached an agreement, they all walked out and respectfully approached the inheritance marks they admired, intending to undergo the assessment and obtain each other's unique inheritances. First was Zhang Chen, who came before the Blade Ancestor and respectfully bowed, saying, "Zhang Chen, a latecomer of the human clan, requests the Blade Ancestor to conduct the assessment." Hearing this, the Blade Ancestor withdrew his gaze from Zhang Zan and turned to look at Zhang Chen. He could see Zhang Chen's bloodline talent and aptitude clearly, and couldn't help but shake his head and smile, asking, "Zhang family bloodline, are you a descendant of the mountain god? Do you want my Blade Dao inheritance?" Blade Ancestor has keen eyes. Being recognized by the Blade Ancestor for his bloodline origin, Zhang Chen's heart was instantly filled with excitement, like a brilliant firework. However, he remained calm on the surface and looked at the Blade Ancestor, solemnly nodding his head. Please bestow your teachings, Blade Ancestor. But the Blade Ancestor's next words made Zhang Chen freeze in place, his heart turning cold. Just a bloodline concentration of only 80. Where does your confidence come from? This. Zhang Chen raised his head in disbelief, looking at the Blade Ancestor with some confusion and feeling at a loss. What does it mean to have only a bloodline concentration of 80? He asked himself, with his Zhang family bloodline concentration of 80, hasn't he already surpassed the majority of geniuses in the world? Even those geniuses from the Celestial Wonders realm earlier, he was confident that none of them could compare to him. Moreover, wasn't it because of the Zhang family bloodline in our bodies that you all appeared? Why are you looking down on it now? Go back. The Blade Ancestor chuckled, waved his sleeve, and sent Zhang Chen back to a distance. Zhang Chen's face changed constantly, his heart filled with confusion. Where did he go wrong? Why doesn't the Blade Ancestor recognize his bloodline talent? But the experiences of the other 4 geniuses that followed made Zhang Chen realize, it turns out, the Blade Ancestor had already been quite polite to him. Get lost. A bloodline concentration of only 75, and you have the face to seek my inheritance. With an irritable shout, the martial emperor of the town demon slapped the genius from the second ancient city, sending him flying back. The other 2 geniuses didn't fare any better. One was coldly rebuked and sent back, while the other was knocked away by the Red Lotus Sword Immortal with a single sword strike. Zhang Chen's eyelids twitched, as if he had been splashed with a bucket of cold water, and his originally inflated confidence deflated like a balloon, instantly plummeting to the bottom of the valley. Even more so, a strong sense of unease rose in his heart. These ancient powerhouses didn't seem as amiable as he had imagined. On the contrary, their tempers were somewhat irritable. Zhang Chen and the other 3 geniuses looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock, helplessness, and deep confusion. Since these seniors didn't value their bloodline talents, then why did they all appear? According to the records of the previous trials, there was no such situation. It couldn't possibly be because of that Zhang Chenkin who suffered 1,000 cuts, right? One of the geniuses tried to lighten the atmosphere with a joking tone. But as soon as the words were spoken, all 4 fell silent. They looked at each other, their faces full of confusion. In this trial, only the 5 of them entered, and the inheritances of the ancient powerhouses appeared one after another. If it wasn't because of them, then it could only be. Zhang Chen and the others subconsciously shifted their gaze towards Zhang Zan. When they looked, they were all dumbfounded. No. When did this Zhang Chenkin, who suffered 1,000 cuts, reach the top? While Zhang Chen and the others sought the inheritance of the ancient powerhouses, Zhang Zan paid no attention to the outside world, burying his head and continuously receiving the baptism of the monument, improving his physical condition. There was no way around it. His Zhang family royal bloodline with a concentration of 95, and the momentum piled up on the altar, didn't really make much of a difference to him. It couldn't cause any interference. And then, he reached the summit. At this moment, Zhang Zan, with his translucent and almost transparent flesh, radiated a dazzling king's blood that roared and boiled. It shimmered with a blood color that scattered a golden glow. Following that was the pure flame bursting from the innate fire Tao spirit body, as well as the countless ancient thunder patterns derived from the indestructible thunder body. The 2 constitutions were undergoing a transformation, presenting astonishing phenomena. On one side, the sea of fire raged. The laws of the fire Tao churned, and the violent heat waves seemed to burn the heavens and earth clean. On the other side, thunder raged. Countless thunderstorms evolved into a thunder prison, and the violent laws of thunder danced like mad snakes. But this was far from over. The innate fire Tao spirit body was undergoing a complete evolution, and the evolving flames surged with a sacred green light, with the temperature continuously rising. Moreover, the hidden great Tao of fire within it was rapidly accumulating in a strange way. The already perfected fire Tao intent was advancing at an extremely fast pace. After a moment, a crisp cry suddenly sounded from the surging sea of fire. The hazy sky suddenly split in half, and from the end of the void, a green divine radiance shot out and poured into the sea of fire. Boom! The sea of fire suddenly increased 100-fold. From the violently surging sea of fire, a vermilion bird with fluttering wings flew out. Although it was still just a faint shadow, its naturally diffused aura was very noble, as if it were a real existence. The innate fire Tao spirit body had completely evolved into the vermilion bird body. The vermilion bird body. Those who witnessed this scene were all stunned, their expressions filled with shock and disbelief. It is said that when the vermilion bird body is cultivated to its peak, it can rival the sacred body in terms of fire constitution. Moreover, if one has the opportunity to practice the Phoenix clan's innate divine ability, rebirth in flames, there is a chance for the vermilion bird body to continue to transform and evolve into the nirvana phoenix body that is on par with the innate sacred body. Zug Daxian stroked his white beard and exclaimed, truly worthy of being the young king who carries the will of humanity. He actually transformed an ordinary innate fire Tao spirit body into the vermilion bird body. Unfortunately, none of us here are proficient in the fire Tao or practice the divine ability of the Phoenix clan, otherwise we could have assisted the young king further. The Blade Ancestor and other ancient powerhouses nodded in agreement, expressing their regret. Zhang Chen and the others were completely shocked, as if they had lost their souls. They couldn't understand how this guy who had suffered 1,000 cuts managed to reach the summit. They were well aware of the exponential increase in difficulty at each stage of the altar. Even with their Zhang family bloodline, they found it extremely difficult to make progress. They had a clear understanding of themselves and at most could only climb to the 4th level. But in the blink of an eye, this kid actually reached the summit directly. Could it be that his bloodline is stronger than theirs? This is impossible, right? Even though Zhang Chen and the others had already realized this fact, they still refused to admit it. They didn't want to admit that as descendants of the mountain god, their bloodline was actually inferior to that of an outsider, and this kid only had the cultivation of the spirit transformation realm. Of course, what they didn't understand was, how did this guy who had suffered 1,000 cuts, Zhang Chenkin, undergo a physical evolution? It was well known that one's constitution was an innate talent, and it was extremely difficult to improve through effort alone, unless one possessed a heaven-defying elixir that could change one's constitution or practiced abnormal techniques that could alter the heavens and earth. But regardless of which method, changing one's constitution was still extremely difficult and full of constraints. But what about the scene before them? This guy who had suffered 1,000 cuts, Zhang Chenkin, didn't show the slightest sign of difficulty during the process of physical evolution. In their perception, this kid was as casual as drinking water, and then his physical constitution evolved into the vermilion bird body. Come on, this is the vermilion bird body. When cultivated to its peak, it can compete with the sacred body in terms of constitution, and among the various fire constitutions, it is also enough to rank at the forefront. Zhang Chen and the others were now a bit crazy, and jealousy had almost driven them to lose their sanity. But was this the end? No, it wasn't. The innate fire Tao spirit body underwent the baptism of the human monument and evolved into the vermilion bird body. The indestructible thunder body naturally also underwent its transformation. Boom, 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 one after another, thick and powerful thunderbolts fell from the sky, shattering the still unhealed sky into pieces. The sky turned dark. Terrifying thunder rages madly between heaven and earth, flashing with dark purple lightning, rendering the dim world into a realm of thunder and lightning. Strands of thunder laws converge into vast oceans, stirring up towering waves. The sea of thunder churns violently, tearing open cracks in the void. The entire world momentarily resembles the end of the world in a thunderous prison. At this moment, ancient thunder patterns on Zhang Zan's body flicker with divine radiance, while the thunder laws surrounding him quickly gather into a robust and dragon-like chain, coiling around his body. The fierce and formidable aura spreads out, making people's hearts tremble. Boom! A dull roar resounds from Zhang Zan's body. The endless thunder between heaven and earth rushes towards Zhang Zan as if responding to a call, rapidly converging on his body and gradually materializing into a towering figure hundreds of feet tall. Bathed in thunder, the figure wields a spear made of thunder. An extremely destructive and fierce aura surges, tearing apart everything in its path. With each breath Zhang Zan takes, the towering figure rises and falls, resembling a divine being wielding thunder to punish all living beings. Everyone gazes at Zhang Zan and the towering figure made of thunder, their hearts filled with shock and awe. Is this a divine ability or a physique? Why is there such a terrifying fluctuation of aura? Zhang Chen's eyelids twitch, a deep unease surging in his mind. Although the opponent is only in the spirit transformation realm, the aura he is releasing now gives Zhang Chen a chilling sensation, making him feel unable to contend. It's unreasonable, very unreasonable. Could it be that this Zhang Zan has better aptitude than him? Zhang Chen's mind jumps, forcefully rejecting this thought. He cannot accept that someone in the spirit transformation realm from outside is stronger than him, who has an 80 bloodline concentration. What is the deal with this Zhang Zan? A monster murmurs in a low voice, with obvious emotional fluctuations in his tone. Clearly, deep shock fills his heart. The other two monsters shake their heads in silence, then look at Zhang Chen, their eyes filled with inquiry. Zhang Chen remains silent for a moment, then says with some complexity, I heard, he is a young lord from the Zhang family in the Celestial Wonders Realm's eastern divine continent. Young lord. The three monsters suddenly raise their heads, their faces filled with doubt. Leaving aside the quality of his bloodline, just considering his transformation into the vermilion bird physique and now manifesting such a terrifying thunder embodiment made of countless thunder, such powerful talent and strength, he is only a young lord. Have they been trapped in this closed-off information and fallen behind the times? Or, is that Zhang family in the Celestial Wonders realm just too abnormal? Afterward, Zhang Chen and the others fall into silence, digesting the impact brought by Zhang Zan while trying to adjust their own positions. A thought gradually rises in their hearts. If they can avoid being enemies with this person, they should avoid it. The monster who made a move earlier is even more afraid in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't act against him earlier. Otherwise, he would definitely be held accountable now. What kind of divine ability is this? How can such a terrifying power erupt in the spirit transformation realm? The martial emperor of the demon suppression sect is astonished, his hazy eyes fixed on Zhang Zan, unable to discern his reality. The Blade Ancestor and others are the same, their hearts filled with doubt. They can clearly sense that the human race in the various realms has long lost its former glory and has even fallen into a miserable state. Under such circumstances, the birth of a king bloodline with a concentration of 95 can already be seen as a self-rescue move guided by luck. Therefore, they are not surprised by Zhang Zan's cultivation in the spirit transformation realm. In fact, they have already prepared themselves to contribute their own heritage to him, to assist him on his long journey. But I didn't expect, the other party seems to have already mastered an extremely powerful inheritance. That incarnation formed by thunder, even they were quite shocked. Its origin is extraordinary, and it is very likely much stronger than their own inheritance. This is the indestructible thunder body. Zug Daxian's hazy eyes flickered with wise light, directly revealing the foundation of the thunder incarnation. With a tone of astonishment, he said, it is said to be an immortal existence. During the process of enlightenment, it occasionally gained insight and created this cultivation technique based on the immortal aura it obtained through enlightenment. If it can be cultivated to perfection, the indestructible thunder body can even rival the innate sacred body. Rival the innate sacred body. Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe their eyes. Just now, when this young king's physique transformed into the vermilion bird's physique, they already thought it was extremely extraordinary. There was a great chance that he could successfully achieve immortality in the future. But they never expected, the vermilion bird's physique, which is a fire-based physique, was just an appetizer. The true foundation and talent of the other party lies in this indestructible thunder body that has manifested. What a decline and revival! The Blade Ancestor gazed at Zhang Zan and couldn't help but sigh. The human race has declined for several epochs, and finally, signs of revival have appeared. With this young king, the human race will definitely be able to revive and recreate the infinite glory of the past. Furthermore, it is not impossible to go further. Everyone nodded in agreement, looking at Zhang Zan with hope and excitement in their eyes. They were looking forward to that day. So this is the divine ability brought by the partial completion of the indestructible thunder body. Zhang Zan's consciousness merged into the thunder incarnation, sensing the body formed by countless thunderbolts, feeling the indescribable terrifying power. His heart was filled with shock and excitement. This was an indescribable strength. In short, by manipulating this incarnation, he had the confidence to directly kill a profound Earth Realm early-stage genius. For example, that somewhat arrogant Zhang Chen. The gap between the nascent Soul Realm and the profound Earth Realm didn't need to be explained further. The power of the Earth alone was enough to create an insurmountable barrier. Even the most abnormal prodigy, when they were still in the nascent soul realm, could at most defeat some ordinary profound earth realm cultivators, not profound earth geniuses, let alone profound earth monsters. But now, he could do it. Satisfied, Zhang Zan retracted the vermilion bird's physique in the indestructible thunder body. As previously estimated, the partial completion of the indestructible thunder body had pushed his Thunder Dao intent to its peak. But unexpectedly, there was a pleasant surprise. After evolving into the vermilion bird's physique, his Fire Dao intent also successfully reached its peak from completion. My swordsmanship seems to be lagging behind. Zhang Zan smiled strangely. Of course, as Zhang Zan's foundation, even if his sword intent was still at the completion stage, its power might not be weaker than the Fire Dao and Thunder Dao. Because he cultivated the human Dao sword. As long as the luck of the human race continued to increase, his swordsmanship would have no limits. At this moment, standing on the pinnacle of the altar, Zhang Zan suddenly felt something and raised his eyes to look ahead. Buzz! A huge vortex appeared between heaven and earth, and an endless and vast aura surged out like a torrent. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of gears containing special rules resounded again. This time, it was very clear, as if it was right next to everyone's ears. Just as everyone was filled with doubt, a majestic throne slowly appeared in front of Zhang Zan. From an almost transparent and illusory state, it slowly solidified until it completely materialized. The majestic and solemn throne appeared completely before everyone's eyes. The divine and sublime supreme aura surged like a tide. The domineering power that overlooked the world rose like raging waves, instantly overwhelming the entire space. Zhang Chen and the other three felt a sinking sensation in their bodies, their faces filled with astonishment, their minds in turmoil, and an indescribable emotion rapidly spreading in their hearts, making them feel the urge to bow down and worship. As if they were subjects, and now it was time to pay homage to their king. What is happening? Zhang Chen and the other three struggled and resisted their impulses while roaring fiercely in their hearts. What is that throne? What did Zhang Chen do? Why are they feeling this way? At this moment, the Dao ancestor and the other inheritors of the legacy were also not feeling well. Their originally hazy figures couldn't withstand the erosion of this power. They trembled as if they could be dispersed at any moment. However, their current mood was particularly excited and exhilarated, even with a hint of tears. Because they recognized that solidified throne and understood its significance. That is, the throne of the human emperor. The symbol of the authority of the human emperor. On the altar, the throne of the human emperor appeared, and its meaning was self-evident, the recognition of the human steel. Sure enough, below the throne, a light and shadow emerged, surrounded by endless rules, chaotic and vast, as if containing supreme truths and carrying mysterious and unfathomable destiny. The light and shadow flowed like dew, gradually transforming into a graceful woman dressed in white. Her aura was hazy and ethereal, like a celestial being. Her delicate and beautiful appearance had an enchanting charm. To say she was stunningly beautiful would not be an exaggeration. The woman looked at Zhang Zan and gracefully bowed. I am the spirit of the human steel. I respectfully invite the young king to take his seat and take charge of the human steel. Zhang Zan couldn't help but blink, feeling somewhat astonished. The spirit of the human steel is actually a woman. Does the human emperor have this preference? A spiritual body has no form and no gender, but the human steel carries the luck and destiny of the human race, gathering the thoughts of all living beings, allowing it to take on the form of a woman, explained the master inside Zhang Zan's body with a touch of annoyance. Gathering the thoughts of all living beings. Zhang Zan was momentarily stunned, and a strange thought emerged. So, her appearance is actually imagined by all living beings. You can understand it that way. The goddess of the nation. Zhang Zan blurted out subconsciously, then realized his mistake. Oh, no, it should be the goddess of the human race. If the master wasn't currently hiding inside the Haoran platform, he would definitely be able to see that his face was black. No. Kid, pay attention to your identity. You are the young king. You have the chance to become the human emperor in the future. Don't lose your soul over a woman. The master said seriously. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Zhang Zan had a puzzled expression. No, old man, what's gotten into you today? Ah, I've also been through what you're going through. Do you think I don't understand your thoughts? The master, in the tone of someone who had been through it all, earnestly advised, "Kid, as a man, you should prioritize your career. As for those physical things, when you have achieved success in your career, everything will naturally fall into place. When you become the human emperor, ruling over the heavens and the human race, all the women in the heavens and the human race, whether they are goddesses, saintesses, or all sorts of demonesses and fox spirits, will be at your disposal. Don't just settle for marrying 10 or 8, even if you establish a harem and gather thousands or tens of thousands, it won't be a problem. As long as you are strong enough." Quote. Zhang Zan's face darkened, and he muttered to himself, "Just shut up." And here, the spirit of the Monument of Humanity, seeing Zhang Zan's lack of response, blinked her watery eyes with a hint of confusion, and then softly reminded, "Please have a seat, young king, and take charge of the Monument of Humanity." Not to mention that this Zhang family descendant, who possesses a concentration of 95% Zhang family blood, already has the qualifications to be recognized as the young king just by gaining the acknowledgement of the human will and the addition of human luck. I ask, if even the young king cannot take charge of the Monument of Humanity, then who among the human race is qualified? The descendants of the Zhang family under the altar. If they still uphold the mission of protecting the bloodline, she might give them a chance to try. But they have obviously forgotten their own mission and even the teachings of their ancestral mountain god. She has already shown great mercy by not directly throwing them out. Zhang Zan regained his senses, smiled apologetically at the spirit of the Monument of Humanity, and then took a step onto the throne and sat down slowly. Boom! The entire chaotic space suddenly shook, and special rules surged, presenting a mysterious change in the heavens and earth. This chaotic space seemed to be gradually calming down and becoming orderly. As if order was being born. The majestic throne emitted a vast brilliance, and the magnificent human luck emerged, enveloping the entire sky like accumulated clouds, radiating a sacred golden light that was indescribably dazzling. Behind Zhang Zan, a boundless continent illusion also appeared. On it, countless figures bowed down. And on the throne within the continent illusion, the majestic figure, the hazy face, became clearer. Originally, only the corner of the eye was clear. Now, half of the face has become clear. It was unmistakably Zhang Zan's appearance. Seeing this, the spirit of the Monument of Humanity revealed a gentle smile. Everything was as she expected. The young king was already on the path to becoming the human king, and the Monument of Humanity was a great help to the young king. Of course, she also needed the young king in order to fulfill her intended role. "Greetings, young king." The spirit of the Monument of Humanity bowed and saluted, her voice as gentle as jade, flowing into the hearts of everyone like a warm spring. The Blade Ancestor and others were shaken by her words and immediately reacted. Their hearts surged with excitement, unable to contain their emotions. Immediately, they all bowed and saluted, "Greetings, young king." Their resounding voices were like heavenly sounds, resounding through the heavens and earth. Zhang Chen and the other three were completely dumbfounded. They stared blankly at Zhang Zan, just as they had looked up at the ancient altar before, gradually developing a sense of admiration. "He is the young king, why didn't anyone say so earlier?" One of the extraordinary individuals murmured with a hint of resentment, "If we had known he was the young king, even if we had the courage of 800 men, we wouldn't dare to be dissatisfied with him." Zhang Chen and the other two extraordinary individuals fell into silence. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. How could we dare to look down upon a young king? Thinking that his bloodline was far inferior to ours. And shamelessly wanting to personally kill him. Aren't we just seeking death? Clearly, we've already taken a stroll in the underworld. Fortunately, the young king is magnanimous and doesn't hold grudges against us, allowing us to keep our heads on our necks. Now what should we do? All three extraordinary individuals looked at Zhang Chen, who was at a loss, as if he were their backbone. Zhang Chen's mouth twitched, cursing in his heart. "I'm not a god, how would I know what to do? Behave well and try to seek lenient treatment." After hesitating for a long time, Zhang Chen reluctantly uttered a complicated sentence. Then, with a heart full of awe, he faced Zhang Zan, bowed his head, and saluted, exerting all his strength to shout as loudly as possible. "Greetings, young king." Chapter 91. The First Ancient City. Buzz. 2 stone tablets trembled violently, shining with their vast brilliance. They emitted mysterious rules, slowly flying up and suspending in the air, creating a magnificent momentum. The crowd looked on in astonishment, not understanding its meaning. At this moment, the stone tablets in the other 3 ancient cities also flew out, tearing through the sky. The 5 stone tablets corresponded to each other, producing a strange fluctuation. Then, they slowly connected and formed a whole. Tall, indescribable, as if presenting the sky. Wide, difficult to describe, as if encompassing the entire world. Made of jade, emitting a hazy radiance, magnificent. Countless auspicious phenomena appeared on it, as if containing the creation of heaven and earth and the principles of all living beings. Only, numerous shocking cracks marred this beauty, affecting its mysterious charm. Boom! An indescribable force suddenly descended, pressing down on the entire broken world. Like a vast and boundless divine mountain, suppressing all living beings. Everyone's bodies sank, and a sense of indescribable awe emerged in their minds, along with an impulse to worship and pay homage. The vast shadow of a continent appeared again in the sky, replacing the original deep starry sky. The vast and ancient aura spread like an ocean. On this continent, countless figures of people emerged one by one, all looking fervently at the altar in the center of the continent, bowing down. No sound came out, but the explosion, like the roar of a mythical beast, impacted everyone's minds with utmost clarity. Their souls trembled, lost in a daze. The fusion of stone tablets. Someone has tamed the stone tablets. Lord Zhongming's eyelids twitched as he murmured in astonishment. Deep excitement and anticipation surged in his heart. Perhaps, it was his son. After all, his son Zhong Chen possessed bloodlines with a concentration of 80, far surpassing the other 3 geniuses. The other 3 lords also had similar thoughts. They had confidence in their own bloodlines and believed that taming the stone tablets was not impossible. As for that Zhong Chenkin who suffered 1,000 cuts, they had chosen to ignore him. How could a mere spirit transformation realm compete with their geniuses? Moreover, the other party came from the Celestial Wonders realm, so their bloodline quality must be ordinary, unable to compare with their geniuses. The ownership of the stone tablets was still uncertain, but it was definitely not Zhong Chenkin. The people of the Zhonghang lineage looked at the fused stone tablets, all showing excited expressions. Everything went as they had expected. The young king successfully gained the recognition of the stone tablets. At this moment, Lord Zhongming looked at Zhonghang and spoke with a hint of arrogance in his tone, smiling, "The stone tablets have recognized their master. Shouldn't our lineages gather together again?" Zhonghang met his gaze and said with a hint of strangeness, "Naturally, no problem. It's good that you have no objections." Although there were constant conflicts and secret attacks among the lineages, they were all of the Zhong family bloodline. If they could gather together and unite as a whole, their strength would undoubtedly greatly increase, and they could regain some of the glory of protecting their lineage in the past. Relying solely on their lineage to protect the young king was definitely not enough. But if the 5 lineages united and followed the young king together, the young king's path would undoubtedly be much smoother. For the sake of the young king, he could let go of past grudges and forgive the persecution of their lineage by the other 4 lineages. Lord Zhongming's tone faltered, feeling somewhat strange. He had a deep understanding of Zhonghang's stubbornness. He was simply obstinate and unyielding. How could he suddenly be so easy to persuade? But then, he suddenly realized that Zhonghang might think that the outsider who tamed the stone tablets was the one he invited, that Zhong Chenkin who suffered 1,000 cuts. Unable to help but shake his head and laugh, his tone tinged with mockery, "Zhonghang, it's time to wake up. The great era is coming, this is our chance as the Zhong family. Even for the sake of our descendants, your stubborn ideas should change." Then, Lord Zhong Mingcheng looked at the other 3 city lords and said solemnly, "After the trial of the Monument of Humanity is over, I suggest that the one who controls the monument should be appointed as the young patriarch of the Zhong family, whether it's my son or the prodigies of your lineages. We have been divided for too long, it's time to come together again, to protect the name of the Zhong family and venture into the Celestial Wonders realm, to contend with various schools of thought and seize the opportunity of this great era." The 3 city lords glanced at each other, their eyes filled with contemplation. They understood very well what Lord Zhong Mingcheng was planning. After all, his son Zhong Chen surpassed their prodigies in both bloodline talent and cultivation. Naturally, the possibility of the monument recognizing him as its master was much higher. However, this didn't mean that their prodigies had no chance. Of course, aside from Lord Zhang Mingcheng's well-known selfishness, it had to be admitted that his words made sense. They had been divided and fought for so long, it was time for it to end. After all, the monument had already merged and recognized its master. This meant that their entire clan had the opportunity to leave this place. Since they were going to leave and go to the Celestial Wonders realm, it was necessary for their 5 lineages to come together again. Only then would they have a chance to contend with various schools of thought and establish the Zhang family in the Celestial Wonders realm. Immediately, they all spoke up, expressing no objections. Zhang Heng watched quietly, a smile on his face, his expression somewhat strange, as if he was suppressing something. Outside the first ancient city, Xiaotianyi and the other outstanding individuals and prodigies, after being shocked, all stared at the monument with fiery gazes, their eyes filled with longing for this sacred object of the human race. After all, it was the supreme artifact that carried the luck and destiny of the human race. If they could control this object, what would they have to fear in the future? They could reach the pinnacle. Who exactly obtained the recognition of the monument? Ji Yufeng, the junior sect master of the extreme Dao sect, stared at the monument with burning eyes and asked in a deep voice. The prodigies' gazes flickered, filled with doubt. If it was a prodigy from the first ancient city, they would probably have little chance to compete for it. Pure Yang Sword Song Henge snorted coldly and said in a deep voice, "It's obvious that Zhang Chenkin, the one who suffered 1,000 cuts, obtained the recognition of the monument. He had already infiltrated the natives of one lineage before, and even subdued a piece of the monument. Obviously, he knew some secret and had been plotting for the monument." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's hearts trembled, subconsciously thinking that what Song Henge said was highly likely. They all had thoughts in their minds. When that Zhang Chenkin, who had suffered 1,000 cuts, appeared, it would be the time for them to make a move and snatch the monument. A mere spirit transformation realm cultivator actually dared to play tricks on them repeatedly. He deserved to die. Mr. Puppet, hidden in the shadows, narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. He instructed the 2 outstanding individuals behind him, "Be prepared, but there's no need to rush. Wait for Zhang Zan to appear and keep an eye on him. If he dies at the hands of others, so be it. If he doesn't die, at any cost, send him to the afterlife." The 2 outstanding individuals exchanged glances, showing hesitation. Should we also try to seize the Jixia Academy and the monument on Zhang Zan's body? Mr. Puppet shook his head and said calmly, "Don't confuse priorities. Zhang Zan is the main purpose of our trip. Besides, with so many prodigies eyeing the Jixia Academy and the monument, relying solely on the 2 of you and the clone I control, the chances of success are too low." Upon hearing this, the 2 nodded thoughtfully and began to prepare. They summoned nearly 100 spiritual weapons, forming a hidden killing formation. The yin and yang energies flowed, and a chilling killing intent surged like a hidden tide. This was not an ancient and powerful formation, but once activated, nearly 100 spiritual weapons would self-destruct together, exchanging this for terrifying power, enough to instantly annihilate a mid-profound Earth realm prodigy. Zhang Zan was still in the spirit transformation realm, undoubtedly doomed to die. On the other side, Zhang Hong tightly closed his eyes, staring at the anomaly in the sky above the first ancient city, and couldn't help but exclaim, "The monument has merged, he really succeeded." Immediately, his whole body turned into a burning divine radiance, tearing through the shattering void and rushing towards the direction of the divine abyss. The monument has already merged, the trial of the monument is over. The divine abyss will definitely open. As Zhang Hong had anticipated, above the sky, the ancient and vast anomaly suddenly underwent a change. In the central region of that boundless continent, on the ancient altar where billions of people bowed in worship, a hazy and sturdy figure slowly appeared. Clad in armor and wearing a helmet, with both hands gripping a green blade, he sat high on the throne, overlooking all living beings with an indescribable posture and indifference. Whether it was the indigenous people of the first ancient city, the numerous geniuses and monsters outside the city, their bodies all bent at an angle, bowing their heads in reverence towards this figure. Everyone was immediately shocked and pale, filled with an inexplicable sense of awe, looking up at that sturdy figure, their hearts filled with shock and uncertainty. Because, that sturdy figure, his hazy face, was half incredibly clear. And, they all had a sense of familiarity in their hearts. as if they had seen him before. Just as everyone speculated in their hearts about whose face that half belonged to. The remains of the mountain god that stretched across the sky moved. The enormous face that could cover the heavens and earth trembled, unleashing a terrifying destructive force. The sky shook and the earth quaked, as if doomsday had arrived. Like flowing light, one vortex after another turned into dust. The lips, like a heavenly chasm, struggled and wriggled. The entire sky, along with the mountain god's lips, tore apart from the middle, splitting into two halves. The deep crack, like a silent river of death, stretched across the heavens and earth. Everyone looked up at the sky in horror, staring blankly at this scene, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Was this the power of a god? Even though it had already fallen, leaving only its remains, a slight movement of its lips easily tore apart the entire sky. At this moment, they suddenly realized their own insignificance with clarity and depth. In front of a god, no matter how exceptional their talent, profound their heritage, or powerful their background, there was no difference. They were still just ants in the dust. With a casual movement from the god, even if it was just a slight wriggle of the lips, they could be mercilessly crushed. Everyone was instantly horrified. A deep despair sprouted in their hearts. At this moment, the mountain god spoke. "Greetings, young king." A resounding divine voice echoed through the heavens and earth. The entire world instantly cracked with fissures. Countless divine symbols, Tao patterns, and laws of the great Tao surged chaotically, rushing out like a storm, instantly sweeping across this broken world. And in the midst of this extreme chaos, a profound black radiance suddenly shot out from the divine abyss, like a chilling blade, piercing through this world, piercing through the chaotic starry sky. The divine abyss had opened. At the same time, in the southern region of the divine continent, the pillar that stretched across the sky suddenly shattered, and then a profound black radiance shot out from it. The sky of the southern region of the divine continent split into two like fragments of a mysterious light world. "Greetings, young king." The divine voice of the mountain god appeared out of thin air, rolling like heavenly music, resounding in the ears of every living being in the southern region of the divine continent. Then, the astonishing phenomenon of the fusion of man and monument also appeared in the sky. The ancient and vast aura, like a divine mountain pressing down on the heavens and earth, the magnificent momentum of the human race surged like a raging wave. The faces of all living beings changed, staring at the sky in uncertainty. What exactly had happened? Why did such a terrifying anomaly occur? In the great Luo Holy Land, inside the temple, the great Luo Holy Lord suddenly opened his eyes, staring at the sky in astonishment, full of incredulity. That was the human monument that carried the luck and destiny of the human race. The human sacred object that had been lost since ancient times was actually in the realm of true gods. And at this moment, in the palace where the disciples' command tablets were arranged. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, the nameplates suddenly exploded into powder. Feeling a sense of it, the great Luo Holy Lord's figure flickered and arrived. He looked at the shattered nameplates, his face dark and gloomy. Among the outstanding talents who entered the true divine realm of the great Luo Holy Land, more than 95% had fallen, and now only a few profound earth geniuses like Xiao Tianyi remained. What exactly happened inside? The great Luo Holy Lord was full of doubts. The outstanding talents and geniuses of the great Luo Holy Land who entered the true divine realm this time were all at the top level. They were also joined by the geniuses of the extreme Tao sect and the ancient Dark Holy sect, and they had a backup plan that could be supported at any time. With such foolproof preparations, why did so many people still die? What exactly did they encounter? The great Luo Holy Lord didn't know, and the great Luo Holy Land was not an exception. In the entire southern divine continent, all the sects that sent their outstanding talents into the true divine realm were now confused and suspicious. More than 90% of their outstanding talents had died. Could there be something terrifying hidden in the true divine realm? Could it be related to the stone tablet? And at this moment, before the great Luo Holy Lord could further contemplate and respond, the immortal sword that was hovering above the great Luo Holy Land suddenly burst into brilliant sword light. With one slash, it cut through the sky for thousands of miles, leaving a smooth and unhealable crack. Buzz! A nearly decrepit figure slowly walked out of the immortal sword. Trembling, it took a step forward, seemingly teleporting, and appeared in front of the great Luo Holy Lord. The great Luo Holy Lord was shocked and quickly bowed, Greetings, Ancestor of Darkness. The Ancestor of Darkness, a supreme being in the Void God realm, dominated the previous era. Due to the constraints of fate, with little life force left, unable to take the final step and achieve true godhood, he sealed himself in the immortal sword, using its special rules to prolong his life, waiting for an opportunity to achieve enlightenment. The Ancestor of Darkness nodded slightly, without wasting words, and directly asked, "Where is the stone tablet?" The great Luo Holy Lord didn't dare to be negligent and quickly informed him of everything about the true divine realm. The true divine realm, the stone tablet. A gleam of light flashed in the murky eyes of the Ancestor of Darkness, and then he coldly ordered, "I alone will go there. You, on the other hand, prepare to attack the desolate heaven divine sect. A force that has only recently risen in the ancient era dares to ride on our great Luo Holy Land's head. It's time to teach them a lesson. When necessary, we can use their power." Them, mentioned by the Ancestor of Darkness was obviously the people the great Luo Holy Lord had established contact with, and it was also the backup that Xiao Tianyi had been waiting for. Yes, the great Luo Holy Lord nodded in agreement. Immediately, the Ancestor of Darkness took a step forward, once again shifting through space, and appeared above the heaven and earth melt cave. His decrepit body concealed behind the void. His murky eyes stared fixedly at the anomaly of the stone tablet, radiating with fiery light and greed. He had been stuck at the peak of the Void God realm for too long, unable to take the final step due to the constraints of fate. Now, he could only rely on the immortal sword to barely survive and prolong his remaining life. But if he could obtain the stone tablet and use the magnificent human luck to cleanse himself, he would undoubtedly break free from the constraints, step into the true God realm, seize the creation of heaven and earth, and add another 100,000 years to his life. The Ancestor of Darkness suddenly sensed something and looked towards a void. Although it appeared empty, he knew, behind that void, there was also a void god with little life force left, just like him. In fact, it was true. The anomaly of the stone tablet had alarmed the entire southern divine continent and awakened the dormant void god powerhouses, who were all rushing here. The temptation of this human sacred object was too great for them. Approaching their final days, watching death approach day by day, they naturally yearned for something like the stone tablet that could help them break free from their constraints and step into the true God realm. Their desire was overwhelming, even maddening. That's why they all came here, waiting for the end of the true divine realm to seize the stone tablet. Sensing the aura in the surrounding void, the Ancestor of the Netherworld pondered for a moment before choosing to reveal his figure. A gray and decaying sword aura slowly grew out from his decaying flesh. Buzz. The void within a radius of 10,000 miles corroded and withered along with it, just like rotting flesh. Even the laws of the Great Tao and the rules of heaven and earth were affected, to the extent that the area where the sword aura grew was corroded into a desolate and muddy sea of death. The eerie aura that followed was as poisonous as a bone-piercing toxin, making people shudder. The three virtual gods hidden in the void had their expressions greatly changed and had to come out, raising the laws of the Great Tao around them to avoid the erosion of the Ancestor's sword aura. Mingzhang, what do you mean? The virtual god of the Extreme Path sect looked at the Ancestor with a gloomy expression and angrily questioned. Human monument, I want it. You can leave. The Ancestor revealed a smile, and on his withered and old face, there appeared terrifying ravines, extremely horrifying. Mingzhang, you've gone too far. Above the void, the three virtual gods all glared at the Ancestor, their eyes filled with coldness and fear. The Ancestor Mingzhang of the Great Luo Holy Land was a powerhouse from the previous era. He possessed the Burial Heaven sword art, which was said to have been passed down from ancient immortals. It was extremely eerie and terrifying. With a single slash of his sword, wherever the sword aura grew, all living beings and everything would be buried. He still remembered that during the era of Mingzhang, the other party used the sword in his hand to bury the powerhouses of the various continents of Profound Heaven, forcefully dominating Profound Heaven. At the peak, he even declared that on the day of enlightenment, he would bury the Celestial Wonders realm. It was probably because of this that he angered the heavenly Tao of Profound Heaven, causing him to be unable to successfully achieve godhood until the end of his lifespan, bitterly sealing himself until now. Mingzhang was very powerful, to the point of being abnormal. Everyone present was at the level of virtual gods, but if it were a one-on-one battle, no one had the confidence to match him. However, if the three virtual gods joined forces to suppress him, it was not certain who would have the upper hand if they really fought. The human monument contained an immense amount of luck from the human race, enough to break their shackles and step into the realm of true gods. No one could refuse such temptation, so they would never back down even half a step. In the sky above the heavenly cavern, the ancestor and the three virtual gods faced each other. Terrifying auras violently surged, overturning the boundless sky. However, neither side made a move because the true master had not yet appeared while the human monument was still present. Don't rush to fight him. Wait until the true god's secret realm is resolved and we join forces to deal with the controller of the human monument. Take it out of his body while it is still being refined and has not completely merged with him. The three powerful virtual gods exchanged glances and revealed a cold gleam. The terrifying momentum even forced the surrounding creatures to prostrate on the ground, trembling. All the forces or individuals who had ideas about the human monument in the heavenly cavern were also shocked and retreated one after another. The appearance of the old monsters at the virtual god level had already decided, they had lost the qualification to compete for the human monument. Unless the top powers of the Tao tradition made a move, no one could contend. Of course, in the distance, there were still several hidden gazes observing this place, waiting for the appearance of the human monument. Occasionally, the aura that leaked out was also extremely terrifying. However, whether it was the powerful virtual gods like Mingzhang or those hidden in the dark, they obviously did not notice that within the heavenly cavern, there was a young man who had been staring at them intently, as if he was looking for his prey. The young man was dressed in a black and red robe, with a very young face and a sinister smile. But what was extremely strange was that this person's aura was very ancient and decayed, even mixed with a strong aura of death, giving people the feeling that this young man was not human. However, a highly intelligent ancient corpse was born. The divine maiden is truly divine. She actually foresaw everything, the young man exclaimed in awe. The voice did not come from his mouth, but rather materialized out of thin air, causing ripples of the desolate laws to spread through the void. His name was Desolate 12, one of the divine generals of the Desolate Heaven divine sect. In ancient times, he was bestowed a drop of blood by Desolate Heaven, becoming an unaffiliated ancient corpse and reaching the realm of the void god in terms of strength. There were 12 such beings in the entire Desolate Heaven divine sect, all of whom slept within the Desolate Heaven divine sect's treasured Desolate Cauldron. Whenever the divine sect needed them, they would emerge from the cauldron and contribute their power, even their lives. And he was the first divine general to be awakened in this era. Moreover, he was awakened personally by the divine maiden appointed by Desolate Heaven. The divine maiden ordered him to hide in the reverse world of the true god's secret realm, monitoring any movements at the entrance of the realm. If any disturbances occurred in the true god's secret realm, attracting the strongest virtual gods from various sects in southern divine continent, he would be responsible for surveillance and hunting the virtual gods of the great Luo Holy Land. Desolate 12's gaze pierced through the void barrier of the reverse world of the true god's secret realm and fell upon the figure of the ancestor of the underworld. After observing for a long time, his eyes narrowed slightly, and a wicked smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He murmured with great interest, "The burial heaven sword art. It is clearly a plaything of the demon race, yet it is shamelessly named after the ancient immortals' heritage." HMPH. Desolate 12 sneered coldly, then disappeared once again, waiting for the end of the true god's secret realm. With his own strength, the possibility of directly killing the ancestor of the underworld was very small. After all, the opponent's combat power was truly terrifying, almost invincible in the realm of virtual gods. However, when the true god's secret realm ended and the virtual gods fought for the monument of man, in the midst of the chaos, he would strike and assassinate the ancestor of the underworld, greatly increasing his chances of success. Just as the waves were stirred up outside due to the monument of man, even the realm of virtual gods was alarmed, and they descended upon the entrance of the true god's secret realm, eagerly awaiting. Inside this fragment of the mysterious light world, it became even more turbulent due to the opening of the divine abyss. After the opening of the divine abyss, following the profound black radiance, brilliant divine radiance shimmered, and the laws of heaven and earth trembled. The originally unfathomable abyss seemed to become transparent, gradually revealing its internal scenery between heaven and earth. Faint shadows of treasures flickered, radiating brilliant light and exuding auspicious rays, as if containing extraordinary luck and opportunities. Several thriving ancient medicine fields were adjacent to each other, and the dense medicinal fragrance condensed into ethereal mist, with countless visions of medicinal herbs swaying within. Behind the ancient medicine fields, there was an even deeper place, emitting holy divine radiance, scattered between heaven and earth, as if it were a sacred place, containing endless mysteries and opportunities. Seeing this scene outside the first ancient city, the geniuses were immediately captivated, no longer paying attention to the monument of man and Zhang Chenkin. After all, they were destined to be unable to avoid those indigenous people when fighting for the monument of man. The strength of the other party was there, and the difficulty could be imagined. The divine abyss, on the other hand, was different. With numerous treasures and countless opportunities, they would definitely gain something. As long as Zhang Chenkin leaves the ancient city, with our strength, we can easily suppress him and solve him effortlessly. Now, the three of us join forces, we have a chance to exclusively occupy that land of opportunity. The great Luo Saint Child, Xiao Tianyi, looked towards Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai, speaking in a deep voice. Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai's expressions changed, and their three forces, totaling more than 10 profound earth experts, held an absolute advantage among the various forces. As Xiao Tianyi said, they indeed had a chance to exclusively occupy the opportunity. Their hearts suddenly burned with excitement. If they could exclusively occupy the opportunity, their gains might not be worse than obtaining the monument of man. Immediately, they nodded in agreement. Then, the three forces flew out together, turning into a ray of light, and rushed towards the divine abyss. The other geniuses from various forces were the same, carrying their fervent emotions, rushing towards the divine abyss. Such a divine and mysterious place, even if they could obtain one or two opportunities, it would still greatly enhance their strength. Moreover, the divine radiance emanating from the deepest part of the divine abyss contained the essence of the universe, as if it had the intention of eternal life. Its opportunities were absolutely transcendental, even surpassing the monument of man. Zhang Chenkin, live well. Before the true mystery realm ends, I will personally cut off your head. Henge gazed at the first ancient city, with a cold light in her eyes. Let's go. Without saying anything more, she turned around and led the remaining elite disciples of the pure Yang Sword Palace, transforming into sharp sword energy that cut through the void. Their destination was the divine abyss. Although he had suffered a setback from Zhang Chenkin and lost many elite disciples, he was filled with a strong desire to kill Zhang Chenkin and behead him. However, he did not lose his rationality and knew how to weigh the pros and cons. Continuing to stay here would not greatly increase the possibility of obtaining the human steel, but it would provide an opportunity to kill Zhang Chenkin in one fell swoop. But for him, there would be no substantial benefits in doing so. Instead, he would watch as other elite disciples and geniuses plunder the treasures and opportunities in the divine abyss, causing harm to others without benefiting himself. It was not worth it to go through all that trouble for Zhang Chenkin. Seeing that most of the elite disciples and geniuses had already left for the divine abyss, a Zhao family genius quickly asked Zhao Fuyao with a respectful tone, "Goddess, should we continue to wait or go to the divine abyss?" Go to the divine abyss. Zhao Fuyao pondered for a moment and gave a faint order. But as they were about to set off, Zhao Fuyao's eyes, shining with starlight, still lingered on the first ancient city, filled with hesitation. The human steel was valuable, but it was not something she needed. If she obtained it, it would be fortunate, but if she didn't, it wouldn't be a big loss. After all, in this vast world, there were countless secret places and countless extraordinary opportunities. In the future, there would naturally be opportunities that could rival or even surpass the human steel. What she cared about was Zhang Chenkin. Such a talented genius, she had never seen before. He was truly a rare talent, and she cherished him greatly. Her desire to subdue him grew stronger with each twist and turn. She had a premonition that if she couldn't subdue Zhang Chenkin in the true mystery realm this time, it would be a regret that she would carry for the rest of her life. But the current situation was too chaotic, and she had no opportunity to subdue him. Waiting here stubbornly would also be unlikely to achieve the desired result. Considering the pros and cons, going to the divine abyss was the rational choice. Master, what should we do? The two exceptional disciples behind Guixian had a hesitant expression, occasionally glancing towards the divine abyss with a desire for opportunities. The opportunities were right in front of them, yet they still had to wait for Zhongzhan to appear. After all, they were exceptional disciples and had pride and pursuit in their own paths. At this moment, they felt a bit dissatisfied. Guixian glanced at them coldly and rebuked, "Put away your selfish thoughts. Assassinating Zhongzhan is the order of the Holy Lord. If you delay the Holy Lord's plan, even if you gain more opportunities, you will only end up dead." The two exceptional disciples trembled in their hearts upon hearing this and immediately responded respectfully, "Yes." Guixian swayed the feather fan in his hand, staring at the first ancient city with a cold light in his eyes. When the divine abyss opened, Zhongzhan would not be able to escape. As soon as he walked out of the first ancient city, it would be the moment for Guixian to make his move and kill him. While everyone was heading towards the divine abyss, Zhonghong had already arrived there ahead of time. He entered the divine abyss like a streak of light, plunging into its unfathomable depths. Soon, he arrived in front of the ancient medicine field. The 4 ancient medicine fields, containing the universe, were actually suspended in the waist of the divine abyss, occupying the entire horizontal surface. They were enveloped and supported by countless profound and ancient restrictions, and the dense medicinal fragrance condensed into ethereal fairy mist, flowing slowly. Faintly visible were thousands of rays of light swirling around the medicinal herbs, presenting a mysterious spectacle. Zhonghong's closed eyes flickered with a brilliant divine flame as he used his divine ability to scan the 4 ancient medicine fields. However, his gaze did not linger on the medicinal herbs, but was searching for his target on this trip, the mountain-shaking cauldron. There was no other way. Although he could manipulate some of the rules of this world, his cultivation was still too weak. As someone who had only reached the divine perception realm, he couldn't confront those exceptional disciples and geniuses head-on. That's why he was the first to arrive here but still didn't dare to have too many thoughts about these prominent medicinal herbs. He had to act quickly and take away the mountain-shaking cauldron before those geniuses arrived. After a moment, the divine flame trembled and shot out a brilliant radiance. "I found it." Zhonghong's face revealed a pleasant surprise. He immediately manipulated the rules of the world and opened a passage in the restrictions that enveloped the ancient medicine fields, swiftly entering it. In a corner of the 3rd ancient medicine field, Zhonghong dug into the spiritual soil with both hands and unearthed a gray-white ancient and simple cauldron. The cauldron was covered in cracks and had lost its radiance, showing no signs of any divine qualities. However, Zhonghong knew in his heart that this was the conqueror Ding he was looking for, the sacred artifact once held by the mountain god that stood in the sky. But, the mountain god fell in the battle back then, and the conqueror Ding was heavily damaged, becoming what it is now. Zhonghong satisfactorily took the conqueror Ding and didn't hesitate at all, quickly leaving the place. Not far from the divine abyss, he found a hidden place and began to refine the conqueror Ding. If he could successfully refine the conqueror Ding and merge the power of the mountain god into his own eyes, his divine ability, the heavenly eye of 10,000 laws, might officially advance. By then, his strength would also have a small leap. Entering the spirit transformation realm would not be a problem. With the manipulation of the rules of this place, he should be able to confront those profound earth geniuses. There are too many opportunities in the divine abyss. He was also envious. Without strength, he naturally wouldn't have any hesitation, but if his strength greatly increased, he would naturally have to compete. However, Zhonghong obviously didn't notice that after he took the conqueror Ding, the 4 ancient medicine fields covered by restrictions had undergone some subtle changes. The ancient restrictions had obviously weakened significantly, as if they were not as strong as before. And the medicinal herbs in the 4 ancient medicine fields were swaying with a special frequency. It gave people the feeling that they were trembling under the shroud of fear. On the other side, the desolate heaven goddess Luo Xinglan and her 3 core disciples. They were the first to arrive at the divine abyss and were now naturally ahead of everyone, including Zhonghong. In fact, they had already crossed the ancient medicine fields. The 3 core disciples looked up at the ancient medicine fields that filled the sky above their heads, full of confusion, and couldn't help but look at Luo Xinglan, bowing and asking, "Goddess, there are clearly many medicinal herbs in the ancient medicine fields above our heads. Since we are the first to enter the divine abyss, why don't we take them?" Luo Xinglan followed the three people's gaze, looked up at the ancient medicine fields, and then withdrew her gaze indifferently, saying calmly, "Even if we take them all, what's the use?" The three of them stiffened, full of astonishment and doubt. The four ancient medicine fields contained the vast universe, with an area of at least thousands of acres. The large and medicinal herbs inside were extremely abundant, permeated with ancient aura. If these ancient medicines were piled up, they should be able to produce a large number of profound earth powerhouses, right? It should be noted that in the various major sects of the profound heaven, the profound earth realm was also an absolute backbone force. If the desolate heaven divine sect could create 1,000 or 800 profound earth powerhouses, its position in the southern divine land would not only rise to a higher level, but it would also have more than enough power to maintain its dominance. Of course, no one would waste medicinal herbs like that. In fact, if these ancient medicines were used properly, it would not be difficult to create several more venerable or even divine realm powerhouses. Could it be that they are useless? If other geniuses saw this, they would go crazy. Luo Xinglan saw through the thoughts of the three people, shook her head and smiled, a touch of bitterness flashing in her eyes. She knew very well that the great calamity that the desolate heaven divine sect would face in the future could not be solved by just a few more venerable or divine realm powerhouses, let alone relying on so-called 1,000 or 800 profound earth powerhouses to resist. In fact, even her many plans and the repeated killings of geniuses from various sects on this trip were just insignificant attempts based on the current situation. She knew very well that these plans had no impact on the overall situation. They could only be considered better than nothing. Zhang Zan's figure flashed through her mind again. Luo Xinglan's beautiful eyes became more determined. Only by befriending this venerable could she take the right path. Awakening the divine realm powerhouse of the desolate heaven 12 hunting grounds was a bet that Zhang Zan would become the center of the true divine realm vortex and even trigger the descent of the divine realm. The fact proved that she was probably right. Although it was because of the human monument, not the world tree, she speculated based on her memories of her previous life. This step would definitely help her befriend Zhang Zan. And now, by manipulating some of the rules of heaven and earth, bypassing the ancient medicine fields, and going directly to the location of the world tree, she was also striving to befriend Zhang Zan. I hope Zhang Zan can see everything I have done. Luo Xinglan bit her lip lightly and prayed silently. Remember, this journey is not for opportunities. Luo Xinglan looked at the three core disciples with a serious expression and warned in a deep voice, "Put away all your ulterior motives and focus on your tasks. Otherwise, don't blame me for enforcing the rules." The three core disciples felt a chill in their hearts and quickly responded respectfully, "Yes." The woman in front of them was personally appointed by Desolate Heaven, with an extremely high status, second only to the God Lord. To some extent, even the God Lord had to consider her opinions. Moreover, the woman possessed the mystic yin sacred body and had unlimited potential. She was cherished and respected by everyone in the divine sect. With their identities, they had no qualifications to go against the will of the woman. Although the divine abyss is full of opportunities, it also hides dangers. Even the profound earth is at risk of losing their lives. Be cautious and stick close to me. Luo Xinglan cautioned them solemnly. Then, a faint blue divine radiance emanated from her body as she manipulated a part of the rules of heaven and earth she had mastered. It formed special ripples, and she stepped on the invisible nodes in the void like a dragonfly touching the water. With her past life memories, she had some understanding of the divine abyss. There were hidden dangers within, even secrets that she had not discovered in her previous life. A slight mistake could lead to their downfall. Even with her memories and experience from her past life, she couldn't guarantee a smooth journey to the depths and successfully obtain the sapling of the world tree. The three core disciples nodded solemnly and carefully watched Luo Xinglan. They followed her footsteps cautiously, stepping on the same spots she did. The group of four moved slowly. But in just a moment, their figures disappeared like illusions, as if they had entered another dimension. On the other side, inside the human monument, Zhang Zan had gained recognition from the human monument and was bathed in a vast brilliance, with the majestic luck of the human race flowing into his body. The human will hidden in his sea of consciousness solidified, forming a vague human figure. It sat opposite Zhang Zan's divine soul, resonating with each other. Zhang Zan's mind produced a related understanding. When the human will completely solidified, it meant that he had reached the pinnacle of the lesser king and could attempt to become the human king. And after he achieved the status of the human king, his divine soul could merge with the human will, allowing his consciousness to traverse the heavens and the human race. The human king is not just a simple title, but the supreme authority recognized by heaven and earth. Zhongzhan realized this, just like the mountain god who held the authority of a realm. The title of the human king represented the authority of the human race. Of course, the increase in luck from the human race infused into Zhongzhan's body brought him more than just this. The most noteworthy was his sword Dao. He cultivated the sword of humanity, which was based on the human race and derived its power from the luck of the human race. The infusion of human luck greatly enhanced his sword Dao once again. His sword Dao had reached a perfect state of understanding. In this way, he easily surpassed his fire Dao and thunder Dao. Buzz! A gentle sword aura surged around Zhongzhan, like the water of a hot spring, slowly flowing. In the blink of an eye, it filled the entire altar, giving people a sense of peace and warmth. Zhang Chen and the other 4 outstanding individuals were infected by this sword aura, and their anxious hearts calmed down, becoming much more stable. In their eyes, there was also a deep sense of conviction. Silently nourishing everything. With their cultivation levels, they couldn't perceive the changes in their own state of mind. However, the inheritances left by the Blade Ancestor and other ancient powerhouses, who had once achieved eternal life, keenly noticed the changes when they were affected by the sword aura. But they didn't reject it. On the contrary, they were even more surprised and excited. The sword of humanity. Zhuge Daxian was astonished and speechless, his heart filled with waves of shock, but his face was beaming with a brilliant smile. To take the human race as the path of the sword. In their era, they clearly remembered that this was a hypothesis proposed by the human emperor. Yes, even the human emperor only proposed the idea, it had not been successfully realized. But today, they truly saw it in this young king. Daozu and the others were overwhelmed with emotions, unable to express themselves, struggling to find the right words, and in the end, they could only use one sentence to express their feelings. The rise of the human race. The great rise of the human race. The spirit of the human steel gazed at Zhongzhan, who was sitting high on the throne, her warm eyes flickering with surprise. In that era, the human emperor gathered 3,000 rare stones from heaven and earth, took the luck of the human race, and created her with a great divine ability, giving her the ability to carry the luck and destiny of the human race. However, he did not make her his own, but took a divine authority from the heavens and infected a mountain god to guard her. At that time, she was just a newly born spiritual body, her wisdom was still weak, and she did not understand this. She felt resentful in her heart and had asked the human emperor many times why he created her but did not make her his master. The human emperor only said lightly, "Your master is someone else." This sentence had been troubling her for millions of years. Until today, she suddenly had some understanding. Perhaps, the young king who cultivated the path of the sword was the one the human emperor referred to as her master. The true master. The answer to her millions of years of confusion made the spirit of the human steel cry tears of joy. Tears could not flow from her spiritual body, but the shimmering in her eyes was the ultimate manifestation of her emotions. "Master, I pay my respects," she said. Previously, she said, "I pay my respects to the young king," but now it was, "Master." There was a slight difference in address, but the significance was completely different. No one naturally knew this. Perhaps the mountain god who once stood in the sky and had already perished had some vague knowledge, but it would take a long time for him to recover and regain divine authority. After digesting what he had gained, Zhongzhan slowly opened his eyes, calm and gentle, with a profound and mysterious charm that seemed to encompass everything. His gaze swept over everyone with a calmness that carried an indescribable momentum, causing people's bodies and minds to sink, giving rise to feelings of admiration and submission. "We pay our respects, young king." Whether it was Zhang Chen's 4 monstrous geniuses or the inheritance marks of the ancient powerhouses like Daozu, they all naturally bowed and paid their respects, without any hesitation or resistance, as if it was the natural thing to do. Zhongzhan nodded and smiled, waved his hand, and activated the rules on the altar, lifting everyone up. Then, he stood up and walked down from the throne. The throne dissipated on its own. Looking at the spirit of the human steel, Zhang pondered for a moment and whispered a sentence that only the spirit of the human steel could hear under the influence of the rules. Based on your estimation, if the human steel merges with me, how much of the negative effects of the bloodline curse can it suppress? The spirit of the human steel raised her eyes slightly, focusing on the grim curse totem on Zhang forehead. With just one glance, she recognized it as the terrifying curse set by the Kangming Demon Emperor, and her warm eyes emitted a radiance as she searched her own memories and pondered for a moment before responding respectfully with a difficult expression, reporting to the master, if the human steel is completely merged, restored to its complete form, I am confident that I can help the master suppress 50% of the negative effects of the bloodline curse. But now, the human steel has already split, and it cannot be completely merged. My strength has greatly diminished, so I may only be able to help the master seal the curse totem, preventing it from interfering with the master's cultivation. Zhang narrowed his eyes slightly and nodded slightly. He had gained an understanding of the spirit of the human steel when she recognized him as her master. He just felt a bit unwilling and wanted to confirm it through her. Originally, with the will of the human race and the luck of the human race added to him, the curse was triggered, causing his lifespan to be reduced to only 3 years. Later, in the Zhongheng lineage, he obtained a piece of the human steel, which suppressed the curse totem and extended his lifespan to about 10 years. Now, with the spirit of the human steel recognizing him as her master, equivalent to subduing all 5 pieces of the human steel, his lifespan could be extended to about 30 years. The suppression of the curse by the human steel was not as simple as imagined, there was also a certain degree of attenuation. It was like, when a cultivator took too many elixirs, there would be a certain level of drug resistance. After all, the human steel had split into 5 parts, and until it was completely restored, it could not fully exert the sacred power of the human race's holy artifact. Moreover, this bloodline curse was set by the Kangming Demon Emperor at the cost of his immortal Emperor Foundation. It was already a terrifying existence that surpassed the pinnacle of the heavens. 30 years to achieve true godhood. Zhang smiled helplessly. He wasn't Long Aotian, even if he cheated, he couldn't go against the objective laws. Achieving true godhood within 30 years had never happened in the millions of years of history of the human race in the heavens. However, the role of the human steel is still obvious. After sealing the curse totem, the bloodline curse will no longer be easily triggered, causing trouble for him. The bloodline curse that troubled him has now been simplified to the maximum extent. First, there will be a heavenly tribulation every time he breaks through a major realm. Secondly, he still has 30 years of lifespan. Not bad, I can accept it. Zhang smiled generously. After all, his gains from this trip were quite abundant. The human steel, which carries the luck and fate of the human race, has fallen into his hands, allowing him to see the direction of becoming the human king and has already taken a solid step forward. His physique has been comprehensively improved, his innate fire Tao spirit body has evolved into the vermilion bird body, and his indestructible thunder body has reached a small completion. Both the fire Tao and the thunder Tao have reached a great completion in Tao intent. His sword intent has also reached perfection. Both his bloodline and physical body have been tempered to varying degrees, becoming more in tune with the heavens and the earth, allowing him to sense and absorb the chi of the earth's veins, and stepping into the profound earth realm, laying a terrifying foundation. Even his cultivation has crossed 2 small realms under the infusion of the majestic luck of the human race, reaching the 9th level of spiritualization. Why has my cultivation breakthrough become the most insignificant gain for me? Zhang felt a bit strange in his heart. There was a sense of self-satisfaction and showing off. In fact, Zhang progress could be called abnormal, but under the crisis brought by the bloodline curse, it seemed unsatisfactory. But in fact, he had long left behind the geniuses and monsters of the outside world. How can the human steel be completely integrated and restored to its complete form? Zhang asked. The spirit of the human steel bowed. Master, the human steel carries the luck and fate of the human race, which is closely related to the luck and fate of the human race. As long as the master can continue to gather the luck of the human race and reverse the declining fate of the human race, it can nourish the human steel, repair the cracks on the human steel. When the luck of the human race is sufficient and the fate of the human race is prosperous enough, the human steel will naturally be restored to its complete form. Quote. Zhang Zan's face darkened, and there was a hint of resentment in his eyes towards the spirit of the human steel. No. What you said is equivalent to not saying anything. The spirit of the human steel felt a sense of panic in her heart. A trace of uneasiness flashed across her beautiful face, feeling a bit at a loss, not understanding where she had offended her master. She had waited for millions of years and finally waited for her master, fearing that she would lose him in the blink of an eye. As a being shaped by the wishes of all living beings, she seemed to have learned the joys and sorrows of humans. At this moment, she also became worried and lost. Immediately, she bowed gracefully and apologized. I don't know where I have offended my master. I hope my master can forgive me. With a touch of worry on her beautiful face, accompanied by her melodious voice, every move she made carried a different kind of charm, making people feel intoxicated. Of course, this was for ordinary geniuses like Zhang Chen. The Confucian scholar who was hidden in the Haoran platform silently watched this scene, feeling that it was a disaster. Clearly, she was the spirit of a human race sacred object, but because she had gathered too many private thoughts of the human race, she had developed a special charm. Kid, you are someone who does great things, don't be swayed by her. The Confucian scholar's solemn advice echoed in Zhang Zan's mind. Zhang Zan's mouth twitched. How did this old man, who was not serious at all, become a Confucian scholar? He didn't bother with the Confucian scholar and looked at the spirit of the human steel, thinking about how to make her understand the meaning of the progress bar. After thinking for a moment, he said, it's like the Tao intent, divided into early, middle, and late stages. How much human luck is needed for the human steel to be restored to its complete form? Upon hearing this, the spirit of the human steel understood that her master did not blame her, and her heart suddenly relaxed. A smile appeared on her face, like a lotus blooming in the water, causing ripples in people's hearts. Zhang Chen and the others looked at her, their minds becoming blurred. An inexplicable sense of sourness arose in their hearts. How good would it be if they could be treated like this by her? According to reason, with their profound earth cultivation and extraordinary appearance, their Tao hearts should be stable and not easily swayed by beauty, especially since the other party was just a spirit. But, such a thing happened. It can be seen that the changes that occurred when the spirit of the human steel gathered the wishes of all living beings and took shape were quite strange. The spirit of the human steel respectfully replied, Master, based on the human luck you currently carry, it will take about 100 portions. In addition, Master can call me Linger. Linger. Zhang Zan looked at Linger strangely. A spirit actually gave herself a name. Then, he stopped paying attention and began to ponder the progress bar for repairing the human steel. He still needed 100 portions, which means he is currently at less than 1%. Oh no, not even 1%. The road ahead is long. Zhang Zan sighed helplessly. Shaking his head, Zhang Zan suppressed these troubling thoughts, then looked at Linger. Activate the Monument of Humanity, it's time for us to go out. He subdued the Monument of Humanity and was able to perceive the outside world, knowing about the opening of the divine abyss. Following the principle of not missing out on good things, he definitely had to go out and investigate. After all, if he didn't strive to earn opportunities, it would be difficult for him to withstand the pressure of reaching the true God realm within 30 years. Yes, Linger responded. Extending her delicate jade hand, her jade finger glided through the void, like skimming across the surface of water, causing the rules of this space to flow and form a narrow rift. With a flick of her finger, Zhang Chen and the others were lifted by a breeze formed by the rules and thrown out of the rift. Before being thrown out, Zhang Chen and the others couldn't help but gaze at Linger with longing and infatuation. Perhaps, if it weren't for the overwhelming momentum that Zhang Zan possessed, which made them respect and fear him, preventing them from crossing the line, they would have already made a move to compete for Linger. What a disaster! Not only the master, but also the legacies of ancient powerhouses like the Sword Ancestor, seeing the changes in Zhang Chen and the others, couldn't help but sigh. Then, seeing Zhang Zan also preparing to cross the rift and leave the Monument of Humanity, the Sword Ancestor and the others became anxious and hurriedly flew out, arriving in front of Zhang Zan and bowing respectfully, "Young king, please take us with you." Zhang Zan was taken aback and looked at these powerhouses with some strangeness. These legacies were all within the Monument of Humanity, and he could access them at any time as the controller. There was no need to be so hasty, right? Young king, you may not know, but as the source of energy, the monument of humanity allows us to temporarily exert some of our strength even if we are just a strand of legacy. If we follow you, young king, we can at least help you eliminate small threats and protect your path without worries. Zhang Zan looked at Linger with some surprise, seeking confirmation. Linger nodded slightly, reporting to the master, it is indeed true. However, now that the monument of humanity has split, the energy it contains is not much. The master can probably only take one person with him. One person. The sword ancestor and the others became anxious upon hearing this. Immediately, the sword ancestor quickly bowed and, with a self-promoting tone, said, Young king, please understand that I, as the sword Tao, have achieved longevity through the Tao of the sword. I once followed a king of humanity and commanded a large army in one region. If the young king doesn't abandon me, I am willing to resume my old business and eliminate all enemies for the young king. Zug Daxian and other ancient powerhouses, seeing the sword ancestor being so obsequious, couldn't help but secretly sneer, shameless. After all, they were all supremely powerful beings who had achieved longevity through the Tao. They had also left invincible legends in the vast starry sky. Wasn't this demeaning themselves by doing this? Too cheap. This is what the ancient powerhouses thought in their hearts. But in the next moment, the Red Lotus Sword Immortal imitated the Sword Ancestor and bowed, saying coldly, Young king, don't be fooled by the Sword Ancestor's sweet words. He is just a warrior who only knows how to wield a sword. Besides killing, he doesn't know anything else. If the young king lets him follow, it will definitely bring trouble. But I am different. I have achieved longevity through the Tao of the sword and believe that I have some insights in the sword Tao. Not only can I help the young king eliminate small threats, but I can also provide some assistance in the sword Tao. This was their chance to catch their breath after endless sleep. If they could seize it, they could also check whether the hidden moves they had left behind were still in the mortal world. So, even the ancient powerhouses couldn't remain calm. Zug Daxian and the others fell silent for a moment. Then, they hurriedly spoke up, enthusiastically promoting themselves and, in the process, belittling others. Young king, don't be deceived by them. My strength is the strongest. Martial Emperor Junyao said with a powerful voice. You have all achieved longevity, so how much stronger can you be? I understand both the past and the present and can enlighten the young king. Strength is the most important. With the young king's monstrous talent, he definitely needs a massive amount of spiritual energy for cultivation. I have achieved fame in the formation Tao and can set up the spirit-attracting holy formation for the young king, helping him create a holy land for cultivation. What you all are saying doesn't make sense. With the young king's foundation, do you think he lacks what you have? What the young king needs is a balance between work and rest. I, as the unparalleled master of the Qin Tao, can play the zither for the young king, soothing his mind and cultivating his character. If the ancient powerhouses of the past were to witness this scene, they would probably be dumbfounded. Each of them had once stood above billions of living beings. But now, they were trying to please a young man. Just for the chance to go out. Zhang Zan looked at these ancient powerhouses, who were vying for a spot to follow him, arguing incessantly. He blinked his eyes, finding it somewhat amusing and ridiculous. Was this the treatment of being the dragon-proud sky? When the aura of a king was released, everyone responded. Should he say it or not, this feeling was indeed quite good. Central area of the first ancient city. 5 human monuments merged into one, suspended in midair, emanating a vast aura. Suddenly, the human monument trembled lightly, bursting forth with a milky white radiance, forming a deep rift in the void. Zhang Chen and the other 3 miscreants were thrown out, landing on the ground with a turbulent aura, their faces filled with nostalgia and resentment. Why would such a beautiful fairy submit to Zhang Zan instead of them? What are they lacking compared to Zhang Chenkin? Zhang Ming, the city lord, hurriedly stepped forward, mobilizing the power of the earth veins to stabilize Zhang Chen's aura, anxiously asking, My son, did you subdue the human monument? The other 3 city lords asked similar questions. Zhang Chen turned his head to look at his father, his eyes slightly lowered, shaking his head with a sad expression. He hadn't fully recovered from Linger's charm, his mind filled with Linger's enchanting smile like a blooming lotus. Zhang Ming, the city lord, looked slightly stiff, somewhat incredulous. If it wasn't his son who subdued the human monument, then who else had the qualifications? His son possessed the 80-fold concentration of the Zhang family's bloodline and had reached the second level of the profound earth realm, enough to surpass the other three miscreants, let alone Zhang Chenkin from the outside world. Who, besides the 8 major royal bloodlines, could compare to him in guarding the Zhang family's bloodline? The other 3 city lords were delighted and quickly asked about the miscreants from their respective bloodlines. But the answer they received was a sad shake of the head. Zhang Ming and the other 3 city lords looked at each other, their expressions darkening. If it wasn't the miscreants from their bloodlines, then, that Zhang Chenkin. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Instinctively, Zhang Ming and the others refused to believe it. Not to mention that Zhang Chenkin only had the cultivation of the spirit transformation realm. Even if he came from the outside world, his bloodline was far inferior to the miscreants from their bloodlines. Even if the spirit of the human monument was blind, it wouldn't choose Zhang Chenkin. Zhang Heng and the others from their bloodline had smiles on their faces. Very subtle smiles. After all, it was only natural for the young king to subdue the human monument. The girl glanced at Zhang Ming and the other 3 city lords, muttering in a strange tone, "My father is so strong, isn't it normal for him to subdue a human monument? Do you need to make such a fuss? I've never seen the world." After these words were spoken, everyone fell silent, and the atmosphere became extremely awkward. Zhang Ming and the others twitched at the corners of their mouths, feeling a bit at a loss. At this moment, the human monument once again rippled with brilliance, and an ancient mark slowly flew out of the rift. Boom! A domineering knife intent suddenly burst forth, like a tidal wave, splitting the entire sky in half. The ancient mark dispersed into substantial knife chi, quickly condensing into a burly figure. The ancestor of the blade. On the dignified face of the ancestor of the blade, there was an undisguised excitement and joy. He was very glad that he was the first to step forward and impress the young king, allowing the young king to choose him and allow him to follow closely. But, the ancestor of the blade raised his eyes slightly, looking at this world, his brows furrowing involuntarily. This world was too broken, with more than half of the rules of heaven and earth missing, resulting in the shackles of realms. Even with the human monument as the source of energy, he could only display the strength of the profound earth realm. It doesn't matter. Even if my cultivation is suppressed to the profound earth realm, I can still kill with one slash. The ancestor of the blade thought to himself. Immediately, the knife ancestor faced the crack, bowed, and said with a commanding voice, "Welcome, young king." Zhang Chen and the other 4 disciples, as if triggered, suddenly regained their senses. Their eyes were filled with unease as they reluctantly bowed and said, "Welcome, young king." They had already acknowledged Zhang Chenkin's exceptional talent, and they were indeed inferior to him. But, the allure of the spirit of the human steel was too great. They still hadn't fully recovered from their obsession. They felt dissatisfied in their hearts. Zhang Chenkin's talent was indeed strong, but his appearance was ordinary. How could he compare to them, who were talented and had illustrious backgrounds? Zhang Heng's smile became even brighter as he bowed and said, "Welcome, young king." However, Zhang Mingcheng and the others were still in shock from the intimidation of the knife ancestor. They hadn't reacted yet. After all, this was an ancient mark, and its aura was terrifying to the extreme. Even those at the peak of the profound earth realm felt a chill in their hearts, as if they were unable to contend with it. What happened inside the human steel? Why would such an ancient mark of a powerful being appear? "Welcome, young king." Which young king? That Zhang Chenkin who suffered 1,000 cuts. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The knife ancestor clearly noticed the rebellion of these few individuals. His eyebrows furrowed, displeasure evident on his face. With a casual move, he invoked the laws of the Great Tao, manifesting a broad knife and placing it against the necks of Zhang Mingcheng and the others, coldly shouting, "Have you lost your minds? Hurry up and welcome the young king." The laws of the knife Tao raged, filled with domineering power and a chilling killing intent. Zhang Mingcheng and the others trembled in fear, feeling that death was just a hair's breadth away. Without any hesitation, they quickly bowed, their heads almost touching the ground, shouting with all their might, "Welcome, young king." Soon, Zhang Zan walked out of the crack. After glancing at the knife ancestor, he felt quite satisfied. Leaving aside everything else, Just this point alone proved that the knife ancestor knew how to handle things. With a wave of his hand, he awakened the human steel, rapidly shrinking it into a tiny jade talisman that flew into his brow, sealing the cursed totem. Then, he looked at the people who were bowing to welcome him and said calmly, "Rise." Everyone stood up, looking at Zhang Zan with astonishment and uncertainty. Could it be that this guy really subdued the human steel? Zhang Mingcheng and the others finally realized what had happened and trembled with fear. This guy was the young king. As the guardians of the clan, they had betrayed their mission. Just this alone was enough for them to die without regret. Moreover, they had caused a lot of trouble for the young king today, and they had even harbored thoughts of killing him. Zhang Mingcheng and the others were now filled with despair. And there was an ancient powerhouse standing beside them. They were completely powerless against him. What should they do? Zhang Heng glanced at the four people who looked ashen-faced, smiled with some regret, and instead of adding fuel to the fire, he took the initiative to step forward and respectfully said, "Young king, as we agreed beforehand, the 5 branches of the Zhang family will reunite. Whoever subdues the human steel will be recognized and unconditionally respected as the clan leader." Zhang Mingcheng and the others' eyes lit up as they gratefully looked at Zhang Heng. Then, they quickly said with respect, "Young king, as Zhang Heng said, we are willing to honor you as the clan leader of the Zhang family and serve you with all our efforts." Zhang Zan looked at Zhang Heng in surprise. This guy had been almost cut in half, yet he was now helping the other side speak. Zhang Heng lowered his eyes, avoiding Zhang Zan's gaze. He naturally remembered the persecution his branch had suffered from the other 4 branches. He hated it deeply. But, for the sake of the young king, he was willing to let go of this hatred. After all, the power of Zhang Ming and the other 4 branches should not be underestimated. If they could be led by the young king, they would undoubtedly provide significant assistance. Especially in the current situation, with the opening of the divine abyss, there were countless treasures and opportunities. If the young king could lead the entire Zhang family, they would be able to sweep away those external geniuses and monsters and monopolize all the treasures and opportunities in the divine abyss. What was even more crucial was that the power to protect the clan, although currently limited, was only temporary. This was because the restrictions of this world would be lifted once they left, and all 5 branches would experience a tremendous increase in strength, rapidly advancing and forming a formidable force. A look of displeasure flashed across the faces of Zhang Heng's lineage. They could not understand Zhang Heng's behavior. The young king was in charge of the human monument, and there were ancient strong men following him. He had the absolute power to suppress the other 4 lines. They could petition the young king. Do them justice. But, Zhang Heng just didn't do anything, and even took the initiative to help those 4 meridians escape the crime. They don't understand, why do they do this? However, out of their trust in Zhang Heng, they still suppressed the grievances in their hearts and bowed, "Meet the clan leader." City Lord Zhang Ming and others were immediately overjoyed, and quickly led their people from all walks of life to bow to Zhang Zan. "Greetings to the clan leader, I am willing to do my best for the clan leader." Zhang Zan ignored it, but took a deep look at Zhang Heng, thoughtfully. "I sighed in my heart, if I, a young king, can't even support my own people, what's the point?" Immediately, he turned to look at Zhang Ming and the other 4 city lords. His eyes were slightly cold, and he said indifferently, "You have not repaid the persecution of Zhang Heng's lineage in the past, so what qualifications do you have to be loyal to me?" The expressions of Zhang Ming and the others froze, with uneasy expressions on their faces. "The 4 of you, cut yourself in half," Zhang Zan said calmly. The faces of Zhang Ming and others suddenly changed, and their hearts were full of panic, and they cut themselves off. With their level, timely treatment may save them, but their strength will definitely decline significantly, and lifespan will be damaged. However, if you don't cut them off on your own, you can imagine what will happen to their 4 veins. They can clearly distinguish between life and death, but this choice is too difficult. The 4 city masters Zhang Ming gritted their teeth, summoned the spirit weapon, and pointed it at themselves, but they still hesitated and did not dare to drop it. "A bunch of cowards, what's the ink stain on?" The sword ancestor snorted coldly. As he waved his hand, the sword flashed, and along with the pained cries of the 4 city masters Zhang Ming, blood spattered all over the floor. "Everyone, stop them and cut them off." The 4 city lords Zhang Ming endured the pain, took out precious healing elixirs, swallowed them, and quickly refined them to stop their injuries and hang their lives. The sword ancestor waved his hand again, smashing all the lower limbs of the 4 people, leaving no chance for the other party to catch them, and then shouted angrily with murderous intent, "Why don't you thank the young king for giving you the vitality of the 4 veins, and granting you the freedom to follow the young king? Take your chance." Whether it was Zhang Ming, the 4 of them, or the members of the 4 meridians, their hearts trembled, and they did not even dare to have a trace of resentment. They all prostrated on the ground and said respectfully, "Thank you, young king." Meet the clan leader. Zhang Heng stared at this scene in a daze, his old eyes sparkling with sparkle, which he could not express in words. He could only put his hands on the ground and kowtow in thanks. "Old man, thank you, patriarch." The depression in the hearts of the clan members of Zhang Heng's lineage was all vented as the 4 city masters Zhang Ming were cut in half. A heartfelt smile appeared on his face. He bowed sincerely, "Thank you, patriarch." Zhang Zan looked around at everyone, nodded and smiled, showing kindness and power at the same time. He had initially mastered the Zhang family. His strength in this world has naturally skyrocketed. Heading to the divine abyss, you are confident. Immediately, Zhang Zan calmly ordered, 30 profound earth monks will follow me to the divine abyss. No, everyone responded respectfully. After a while, Zhang Zan led 30 profound earths, turned into divine radiance, and headed towards the divine abyss. It is worth mentioning that Zhang Chen and other 4 monsters are also among the 30 profound earths. On the surface, as monsters in the ancient city, they naturally have to go to the divine abyss to gain their own opportunities without affecting the young king. However, no one knew that there was still a trace of expectation in the hearts of the 4 of them. They want to prove to the spirit of the human monument that has entered Zhang Zan's body that they are not inferior to each other. Zhang Zan, holding the girl on his arm, was at the front and the first to fly out of the ancient city. Mr. Puppet, who had been waiting for a long time, saw Zhang Zan, murderous intent burst out in his eyes, and he smiled coldly, "I finally waited for you." Without any hesitation, he shouted coldly, "Do it and kill Zhang Zan." Promise. The 2 unparalleled genius immediately launched a killing array, and nearly 100 spirit weapons flew towards Zhang Zan, forming a trap and killing force. Mr. Puppet followed suit, flew out, flapped his feather fan, and activated the power of the earth. Supplemented by his great Tao Law, he activated the divine ability to kill. Literary aura splashed, splashing mountains and rivers, forming an ink mountain and river, with the spirit weapon formation. Suppress Zhang Zan together. But just as divine ability was established, Zhang Chen and 30 other profound earths also flew out of the ancient city. The power of the profound earth realm intertwined with each other, shaking the void and forming waves of terrifying surges. Mr. Puppet's expression was slightly stagnant, and a bad premonition suddenly surged in his heart. These aboriginal people in the ancient city were not here to help Zhang Zan, were they? Impossible. As soon as the idea came up, Mr. Puppet directly rejected it. These Zhang family aborigines are very xenophobic and have been hostile to Zhang Zan before. What's more, Zhang Zan has now snatched away the human monument that belongs to them. These Zhang family members must be eager to kill him now. Got Zhang Zan. Yes, they must be chasing Zhang Zan and taking back the human monument. Mr. Puppet used an almost self-hypnotic method to suppress the uneasiness in his heart. Then, while manipulating the mountains and rivers of ink and water, he continued to suppress Zhang Zan. Monument, I only want this son's life. When I kill this boy, I will give him a monument with both hands. There are 30 profound earths on the other side. He is now just a clone controlled by his soul. Even if he has all kinds of abilities, he cannot resist them. He didn't want to be caught in a fire and die on the spot. Although it was just a clone, he would not feel bad if it was destroyed, but the nirvana of the clone soul caused real damage to his body. If the clone soul was destroyed, the divine soul would suffer backlash, and it would be difficult to fully recover without 100 years. When Zhang Chen and others heard this, their expressions suddenly changed, and they were filled with shock and anger. You speak so nicely, not as a monument to others, but only for the young king's life. After killing the young king, he presented the human monument with both hands. You have said so, but if we are slower to kill you, won't the young king have to accuse us of colluding with foreign enemies and treason? Please, the 4 city lords sacrificed their lives to make the young king reluctantly accept our 4th lineage. We were just about to clean up, but you just made us dirty again with just one sentence. If something happened to the young king, no, even if it was just a scratch, they believed that the sword ancestor would not hesitate to chop off all of their heads with the knife in his hand. Zhang Chen and the other 30 Profound Earths stared at Mr. Puppet angrily, as if they were looking at the enemy who killed his father. They did not dare to hesitate at all, and they all used their divine abilities and smashed out. Divine ability, mysterious Taoist techniques, sharp sword energy, all are directly used to kill the killer moves at the bottom of the box. Mr. Puppet's ink mountains and rivers instantly turned into powder, and the spirit weapon array also exploded, and the terrifying energy radiated like a storm. A group of Profound Earth still felt that it was not safe, so they separated into 20 people and instantly stood in front of Zhang Zan, using their strongest defense to resist the energy aftermath, fearing that the aftermath of the explosion would accidentally injure the young king and his daughter. Zhang Chen and the remaining 10 Profound Earths were like crazy beasts, killing Mr. Puppet and the 2 unparalleled geniuses. Zhang Chen, in particular, took the lead, pulling out the great Tao chains that were tied to his body with both hands, waving them like a long whip, running rampant, raging with law, like a bloody warrior. Relying on the suppression and blockade of Mr. Puppet by several other Profound Earths, Zhang Chen used crazy output, and slapped Mr. Puppet with the great Tao chain in his hand fiercely. With the blessing of the great Tao law, even Mr. Puppet could not resist, and blood suddenly flowed out. Splattered, the body was covered with scars. A whip. Why don't you ambush me early or late? Do you have to choose this time? The skin is torn. Mr. Puppet showed pain on his face, but he still had to resist the harassment from the Profound Earth around him, and there was nothing he could do about Zhang Chen's whip. He didn't understand. Was there something wrong with these aborigines? Zhang Zan has taken away your human monument. It's okay if you don't hunt him down. Why are you still helping him, protecting his master like a loyal dog? Cheap or not? 2 whips. Zhang Chen's eyes were spitting fire, and he stared at Mr. Puppet fiercely, asking you to talk nonsense. 3 whips. Let your hands be used as monuments. 4 whips. Let you. 5 whips. Zhang Chen whipped Mr. Puppet again and again. The more he whipped, the more violent his anger became, and even a ferocious look appeared on his face. There is reason to suspect that Zhang Chen's violent venting was mixed with resentment towards Zhang Zan, and his unwillingness to succumb to Zhang Zan. However, the reality is that Daozu has put the knife on their necks, and they can only pinch their noses to recognize it, and they dare not show any reluctance. But at this moment, someone insisted on attacking him, so no wonder he vented his anger on the other person. At this time, the 2 Profound Earths who were attacking the 2 unparalleled genius also ended the battle. The 2 prodigy at the peak of their spiritual transformation were naturally extremely simple to deal with. They violently killed each other with one palm, and then smashed them into pieces of meat and scattered them all over the place. The 2 Profound Earths then returned and joined the battle to suppress Mr. Puppet. 10 Profound Earths, to 1 Mr. Puppet. Mr. Puppet is a dead man. However, Zhang Chen and the others were not in a hurry. Not only were they not in a hurry to kill the other party, they also deliberately measured the situation. On the premise of ensuring that the other party could not escape, they allowed Zhang Chen to continue whipping them and used Zhang Chen's hands to vent their feelings together. Angry. How can Mr. Puppet stand this anger? After all, I am half venerable, but now I am surrounded by a group of Profound Earths, used as a tool to vent, and whipped repeatedly. Shame, shame and humiliation. Ever since, Mr. Puppet really chose to self-destruct, not only self-destructing his clone, but also his self-destructed soul. There is no doubt about the terrifying energy level of a half-step venerable soul. Chaotic energy is raging, and the ultimate destructive power is like a storm eroding the void, rapidly radiating, swallowing up all directions. The faces of Zhang Chen and others changed. Under the energy of self-destruction, they actually felt as if they were facing death. However, the other party's self-destruction was too unpreventable. Although they turned around to escape, it was already too late. I couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Why was this guy so mentally fragile that he couldn't resist even a little whipping? I even secretly hate that I should have killed the opponent directly just now. Mr. Puppet looked around at the escaping Zhang Chen and others, and smiled contemptuously. His self-destruction, even if it did not kill these people, was enough to severely damage them and severely damage their foundation. Without the healing medicine, they would never be able to recover for decades. Said, these people's path has already died. However, that's not what he cares about. A few profound earths can't catch his eye. Mr. Puppet's eyes fell on Zhang, who was 100 feet away, and he was uttering murderous intent. His target had always been Zhang. Whether it was being deceived in the royal city before or being humiliated by these little profound earths now, in the final analysis it was all because of Zhang, this shame. He kept it in his heart and hated it deeply. Immediately, Mr. Puppet, whose whole body was already on fire, turned into a beam of fire, shattered the void, and rushed towards Zhang at high speed. He wants to take Zhang away with him by self-destructing. Mr. Puppet's sneer voice came out from the fire. If you are in the profound earth realm, my self-destruction cannot kill you, but you are only in the spiritual transformation realm. Before he finished speaking, he stopped abruptly. I saw a cold sword light passing by, and the figure of the sword ancestor appeared out of thin air. Using his palm as a sword, he divided Mr. Puppet's self-destruction into pieces, and then rubbed it with both hands. After kneading it, all the chaotic energy was directly kneaded into pure energy elixirs. Throwing it to the girl, Dao Zhu cursed contemptuously, "You talk so much nonsense, you want to be a villain." "Thank you, old man Dao." The girl took the energy elixir, took one bite at a time, and ate it happily. If you are used to eating good food, it is also a good choice to have a few jelly beans for toothpaste every now and then. Anyway, she doesn't refuse anyone who comes. Dao Zhu chuckled. Not only did he not mind the nickname, Old Dao Man, given to him by the girl, but he also felt secretly happy in his heart. This was the young king's daughter. If he pleases her, he will naturally gain a lot of points with the young king. That bullshit Gurren Sword Immortal slandered him as knowing nothing but killing people. What a joke. It's just that he didn't bother to do such things before, but if he really puts his heart into it, he's not bad at all. Returning to Zhang's side, he bowed respectfully, and then the figure slowly dissipated and continued to attach to Zhang's arm in the form of a mark. Zhang Chen and others also returned to Zhang at this time, and bowed down to apologize with lingering fear. "We underestimated each other and almost caused the young king to have an accident. Please punish the young king." Zhang glanced at everyone and smiled lightly. "Have you finished venting now?" Zhang Chen and others were suddenly startled, and a chill ran down their spines. With a plop, they all knelt down and said in fear, "Young king, spare your life. It's normal to have resentment in your heart. I can understand it, but understanding is understanding, which doesn't mean I will be merciful." Zhang touched the girl's head and said lightly, "It's just this time, it won't happen next time." After all, he had forcibly subdued these Zhang family members. He obviously did not dare to take any action, but his heart was definitely full of resentment. Wanting them to be convinced would not happen overnight, and he was not in a hurry. Originally, he planned to further consolidate his mind after Shenyuan. Now, it was a coincidence that with the help of those three ambushers, they were shocked in advance and initially achieved the effect of calming people down. Zhang Chen and the others secretly breathed a sigh of relief, feeling like they had been given a new life. The awe of Zhang in his heart suddenly increased a lot. While taking the energy pill, the girl tilted her head and looked at Zhang, smiling. "Dad, that old swordsman is quite a nice guy." Hearing this, Dao Zhu felt happy, and he was a little bit embarrassed about his wise move. It is not easy to please the young king, but it will indeed be much easier to please the young king's daughter. Zhang smiled and said, "A few pills and you were bribed." The girl stuck out her tongue and said, "Dad, let's go to the divine abyss quickly. There must be a lot of delicious food there." Zhang nodded and smiled, turned to look at Zhang Chen and others, and ordered, "Let's go." Promise. Everyone turned into divine brilliance again and galloped towards the divine abyss. Outside world. In a barren mountain not far from the entrance to True God's secret realm. Puff. Mr. Puppet's eyes suddenly opened, his soul was destroyed, the backlash came, and a mouthful of reverse blood spurted out. The breath is violently turbulent. The whole person seemed to be discouraged and a lot more depressed. Zhang. Mr. Puppet had no intention of caring about his own injuries, his eyes were bloodshot, his anger was gushing out, and he was roaring. What a coincidence. Zhang Zan's guardian, Taoist, was also hiding in this barren mountain, waiting for Zhang Zan's return. Sensing Mr. Puppet's aura, he subconsciously released his soul consciousness and investigated, and happened to hear Mr. Puppet's roar. Tian Lao's eyes slightly wrinkled, murderous intent flashing across his face. The young patriarch pretended to be his identity again and again. No one knew that he had come to southern China, let alone that he had entered the secret realm of the true God. How did this person know about it? They are enemies, not friends. Tian Lao made a judgment almost instantly. Immediately, coercing the great Tao law, a palm fell towards Mr. Puppet. The overwhelming force caused the heaven and earth to turmoil. At this time, Mr. Puppet was summoning the summoning talisman, preparing to report the situation in the secret realm to the Holy Lord. Suddenly his heart skipped a beat, warning of crisis, his face suddenly changed, and he subconsciously resorted to Tao weapon to escape. Boom! The entire barren mountain was instantly razed to the ground. Where Mr. Puppet was just now, there was only a pool of blood and the remains of a Tao weapon that exuded a mysterious aura. Tian Lao's figure appeared, and he called up the remains of the Tao weapon to investigate. There was still the aura of the law of yin and yang in it, and his face suddenly darkened. This was a stand-in puppet. Yin-yang sacred land, Tian Lao said with murderous intent in his eyes. The movement of Tian Lao's action was so sensational that many powerful people around him were alerted and released their soul thoughts to investigate. There were even the most powerful people in the false god realm among them. Tian Lao can only leave and avoid other people's detection. At the same time, in a canyon thousands of miles away from here, Mr. Puppet's figure fell out of the air, covered in blood, and half of his body was missing. Even though he had a stand-in puppet to save his life, it was still impossible for him to escape intact from a venerable sneak attack without warning. Now, most of his foundation has been destroyed, and his realm has fallen from being half venerable to the edge of Tao fusion realm. His strength has been reduced by at least 50%. Zhang Zan, if I don't kill you, I swear I won't be a human being. Mr. Puppet roared bloodily. Burning with anger, he has blamed Zhang Zan for all his unfortunate experiences. Not to mention, his guess was quite accurate. Mr. Puppet has only one thought now: kill Zhang Zan. No matter what the cost, Zhang Zan must be killed. Immediately, Mr. Puppet was unable to stabilize his injuries and ran away directly. He wanted to find an absolutely safe place, summon the Holy Lord, and request the Holy Lord for reinforcements to help him kill Zhang Zan. In the true God's secret realm, after about 2 sticks of incense, Zhang Zan and his party finally arrived at Shenyuan. It turned into a stream of light and fell in front of the ancient medicine field. The scene upon entering is extremely shocking. There are spirit medicine, king medicine, and dozens of Tao medicine everywhere, shining with dazzling rays of light. The cloud-like mist-like spirit chi from heaven and earth, mixed with the rich aroma of medicine, hits your face and refreshes your mind. Just one sniff makes you feel energetic. However, these 4 ancient medicine fields are already occupied by many prodigy and monsters. At this time, all parties are fighting and competing with each other. Great Tao laws, mysterious Tao techniques, sword chi and Tao light, killing formations, appeared one after another, with aftermath waves shattering the void. The intensity of the melee is no less than that of a small war. It is worth noting that the prohibition shrouded in the ancient medicine field exudes an ancient atmosphere and is of extremely high rank. If you feel it for a moment, you will have the illusion that it is about to be obliterated, which is extremely impressive. But this ancient restriction has now revealed holes that cannot be healed one after another. Extremely weird. It's delicious, there's so much delicious food. The girl's eyes were gleaming and she was drooling. Clan leader, give me 20 profound earths, and I will expel them all and occupy these 4 ancient medicine fields for the clan leader. Zhang Chen took a step forward and asked with confidence. The divine radiance all over his body stirred up, and the great Tao chains were tied to the body. The rough and violent aura, like a rioting volcano, would erupt with shocking force at any time. He is the profound earth second layer and has 80 concentration Zhang family blood, making him invincible. He does not take these foreign prodigies and monsters seriously. After all, there can only be one incredible monster like the clan leader. The other 3 monsters also came out one after another, asking for help to fight, with the intention of competing with each other. As monsters, no one has a simple mind. Although the young king has accepted their 4 lines and accepted the position of the head of the Zhang family, there is still a distance between them. Even if their 4 lines city lords are killed on their own, it may not be able to really dispel the young king's feelings towards their 4 lines. Behavioral issues. What's more, in the previous battle, the young king revealed their thoughts and made it clear that this would not be the case again. Therefore, they must work hard to prove their worth and show their sincerity. Of course, it would be even better if we could take advantage of the situation and see their outstanding demeanor. Zhang Zan glanced at Zhang Chen and the others, but did not respond. Instead, he continued to stare at the 4 ancient medicine fields, especially at the broken restrictions. He stayed for a long time, frowning slightly, not knowing what he was thinking. Zhang Chenkin. At this time, someone among the prodigy and monster in the melee noticed Zhang Zan and exclaimed. For a while, many people stopped and focused their attention on Zhang Zan, with a gleam ready to move. Although there are countless precious medicines in the ancient medicine field, including many Dao medicines, there are too many people competing for them, and not many can fall into their hands. But the Jixia Academy and the human monument on Zhang Chenkin are not the same. They have every chance to kill them in the spirit transformation realm, and then take them all for themselves. That's much better than fighting desperately for the Dao medicine. However, they were still waiting and watching and did not take action without permission. They also noticed that Zhang Chen and other aborigines seemed to be with Zhang Chenkin. There was some surprise in my heart. Zhang Chenkin took away the human monument from their hands. Why did these aborigines not take action to intercept and kill Zhang Chenkin, but instead stayed together in harmony? Xiao Tianyi, Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai are still in a group state. There are 17 profound earths among their 3 parties. They are the most powerful force in the field. They are almost pushing forward, searching for spirit medicine along the way. Anyone who dares to fight for it will be violently killed by them. Even now, they noticed Zhang Chenkin, but they didn't pay much attention to him. The fish waiting to be slaughtered will not be able to bounce around for long. Ji Yufeng and Lan Wuhai sneered, and then continued to collect spirit medicine in an orderly manner. As Xiao Tianyi said, as long as the secret realm of the true God has not ended yet, Zhang Chenkin is the turtle in the urn and can be obtained at any time, so there is no need to rush to this moment. Xiao Tianyi glanced at Zhang Zan from a distance, his eyes quickly scanning all the prodigy and monsters. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and an inadvertent smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He has established contact with his subordinates, and they are now on the way to be extradited. In half an hour at most, they will arrive at this ancient medicine field. At that time, everything will be his. Divine Maiden, Zhang Chenkin is responsible for the Jixia Academy and the human monument. If we act now, we are very confident that we can take them all. A Zhao family monster glanced at Zhang Chenkin and bowed to Zhao Fuyao's side, said softly. Zhao Fuyao glanced at the monster, stars flashed in his eyes, and shouted coldly, "Slap yourself." The monster's expression was stagnant, and he didn't understand where he had contradicted Divine Maiden, but Divine Maiden's majesty was unquestionable. He could only slap him honestly, not even daring to hold back, and used his physical strength to shake him off firmly. A slap. His face was swollen and bleeding. The other 6 Zhao family prodigies also trembled in their hearts and lowered their heads, feeling a little more awe in their hearts. Zhao Fuyao raised his eyes slightly and stared at Zhang Chenkin, his eyes shining with admiration. Going deep into the ancient city, winning the human monument, and actually saving the day from danger, this Zhang Chenkin is indeed the talent she has chosen. Wait for the opportunity. When Zhang Chenkin is in danger, we will take action together to ensure that Zhang Chenkin survives. Zhao Fuyao said calmly, "I will take over this person today." When the Zhao family prodigy heard this, their hearts trembled, and they immediately understood Divine Maiden's thoughts, and quickly responded respectfully, "No." But at this time, someone could no longer sit still and took the lead in killing Zhang Zan. The pure Yang sword energy burned the heaven and earth, burning holes one after another. The terrifying power of the sun transformed into a big sun, shining in all directions, attracting everyone's attention and fear. Chunyang Zhanzi Henge's eyes were spitting fire, and with a fierce murderous intention, he raised his sword and slashed at Zhang Zan. Zhang Chenkin, suffer death. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.